Chapter 1189. The continent of divine ruins is a much more powerful continent than the divine wilderness continent. There are many experts there. Why are they here today? Lu Ming, do you want to go and take a look? Xiaofan looked at Lu Ming and asked. All right. Let's go and take a look. Lu Ming was also very curious about the reason why the continent of divine ruins had suddenly descended. The two of you stay here just in case. Lu Ming and I will go and take a look. Xiaofan instructed Chu Luo and the barbaric emperor. The two of them nodded. Little Qing, big brother Yan, wait for me here. Senior Xia and I will be back soon. Lu Ming said to Xia Nianqing and Yan Kuangtu. Lu Ming, you have to be careful. Xia Nianqing warned. Lu Ming nodded. Let's go. Xiaofan shouted softly. Demonic light swept Lu Ming and he stepped into the air. He flew out and followed far behind the warship of the continent of God. The warship of the continent of divine ruins kept flying south at an extremely fast speed. Soon, it flew out of the northern plains and arrived at the central continent. The people of the continent of divine ruins seem to be flying towards the place where the imperial family and the divine army are fighting. Xiaofan said softly. Could it be that they are helpers that one of the two sides has invited? Lu Ming's expression changed slightly. If that was the case, the situation of the divine wilderness continent would change drastically. The warship broke through space and flew at an extremely fast speed, quickly approaching the central continent. There are people fighting up ahead. Xiaofan looked into the distance and said. Lu Ming's expression was a little serious because there was a terrifying pressure coming from the south. Lu Ming sensed it carefully and could feel the space fluctuating slightly. There were definitely terrifying people fighting there because they were sure that the place of the battle was very far away. The warship of the continent of divine ruins suddenly stopped here. The black-robed middle-aged man standing at the front of the warship looked into the distance, then stepped out and headed south. Let's go. Xiaofan and Lu Ming went around the warship and headed south. Boom. Boom. Not long after, he heard a terrifying fluctuation in the distant sky. Even though he was very far away, Lu Ming could vaguely see two figures fighting in the sky. His aura was so strong that it actually surpassed that of an ordinary ruler. So strong. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. The two people who were fighting had terrifying combat abilities. They were above Barbarian Emperor and Chu Luo. Although they were not as terrifying as the battle between Xiaofan and De, they were not far off. They should be at the same level as Xiaofan and De. Below the battle, there was a huge lake. On both sides of the lake, there were many experts. Earth's core lake, where the imperial family and the heaven suppression army were fighting. The black-robed middle-aged man from the godly ruins continent appeared not far away. He looked at the battle in front of him and did not participate in it. Xia Sheng, you are already so old. You are no match for me. In the midst of the great battle, a voice rang out. Lu Ming's expression changed. He had heard from Xia Nianqing that the previous sacred emperor was called Xia Sheng. He was the grandfather of the current sacred emperor, Xia Qitian. He had stepped down from the position of sacred emperor 6,000 years ago and had been cultivating in seclusion. The outside world thought that Xia Sheng had passed away after so many years. However, some people said that Xia Sheng was still alive, but it had never been confirmed. Now, it was proven that Xia Sheng was indeed still alive. The other side is Baijian Martial Emperor. Lu Ming's eyes shone brightly as he looked into the distance. The person who was fighting with Xia Sheng was the Heaven Suppression Army's top expert, Baijian Martial Emperor, who had won every battle. Both of them were the leaders of their respective sides. Their cultivations had reached LV2 Martial Emperor and they were fighting fiercely. Whether I am your match or not, no one can tell until the end. Baijan, I advise you to hand over the Heavenly King badge. It is the inheritance of the imperial family. It is not something you can take away. Xiaofan said. His voice was very old, but it was like thunder. It rumbled between heaven and earth and no one knew how far it had traveled. Xiaofan, you are already so old. Don't think about the Heavenly King badge. Baijan Martial Emperor burst out laughing. The battle between the two became even more intense. In the distance, the middle-aged man raised his eyebrows when he heard the words Heavenly King badge. He mumbled, I didn't expect the Heavenly King badge of the godly desolation continent to still be here. It seems like my trip here has not been in vain. After saying this, he flung his sleeves and took a step forward, rapidly approaching the battle between Xiaofan and Baijan Martial Emperor. Who's there? Who's there? Xiaofan and Baijan Martial Emperor sensed the middle-aged man's presence as he approached. They yelled and separated from each other, staring at the middle-aged man. They had only noticed the middle-aged man when he was so close to them, which gave them a great shock. They scanned the black-clothed middle-aged man with their spiritual senses and found that they couldn't see through him. The two of them were even more shocked. At the sight of this, Lu Ming and Xiaofan were a little surprised. It seemed that the people from the mainland of Divine Ruins were not helpers of either the royal family or Xiaofan. Otherwise, Xiaofan and Baijan Wu Huang would not be so surprised. You have the Heavenly King badge? The middle-aged man glanced at the Baijan Martial Emperor. Who are you? The Baijan Martial Emperor asked with a frown. That's not what I'm asking. I'll ask you again, do you have the Heavenly King badge? The black-robed middle-aged man's voice turned cold. There was a hint of impatience in his tone and it sounded like he was giving orders. The Baijan Martial Emperor's face darkened upon hearing this. No one in the godly desolation continent would dare to speak to him in such a tone. I do have the Heavenly King badge, so what? The Baijan Martial Emperor said. Oh. It's good that you have it. Hand it over, give me the Heavenly King badge. The middle-aged man said. Ha ha ha. The Baijan Martial Emperor burst out laughing and said, You're so funny, appearing out of nowhere and asking me to hand over the Heavenly King badge. Aren't you being too confident? I wonder if you have the ability to do so. The Baijan Martial Emperor's eyes flickered coldly. So you're not handing it over? Then I'll take it myself. The middle-aged man took a step forward as soon as he finished his words. Bang! Following this step, the sky and the ground began to vibrate vigorously. Below him, the earth core lake began to churn violently. Suppress! The middle-aged man said calmly as he lashed out with his palm, causing chi to gather in the sky, forming a towering ancient tree that suppressed the Baijan Martial Emperor. The Baijan Martial Emperor straightened his face as soon as the attack was executed. 100 Battle Godly Fist. The Baijan Martial Emperor immediately lashed out 100 punches. Each of the punches contained a tremendous force that could penetrate the ground and destroy mountains and rivers. 100 punches gathered in the air and combined into a single punch, increasing its power by 100 times. Bang! The punch landed on the towering ancient tree, resulting in a deafening explosion. Suppress! The middle-aged man uttered another word as he pressed down with his palm, causing the ancient tree to expand and emit a green glow. Bang! Chapter 1190. The Baijan Martial Emperor's expression changed drastically as he tried his best to counterattack. However, his attacks were all useless as they were destroyed by the ancient tree. In the end, the ancient tree landed heavily on the Baijan Martial Emperor's body. The Baijan Martial Emperor screamed as his body fell into the earth's core lake. Boom! The Baijan Martial Emperor's body fell into the earth's core lake. Instantly, the Earth's core lake rippled with waves from the place where the Baijian martial emperor fell into. In just a breath's time, the water in the Earth's core lake was blown away and turned into steam. With the Baijian martial emperor as the center, there was not a single drop of water in the area. The crowd could only see the Baijian martial emperor lying in the Earth's core lake, coughing up blood. The imperial family, Xia family, and the divine troop all widened their eyes in shock. The Baijian martial emperor was severely injured by the middle-aged man with a single attack. How was that possible? The Baijian martial emperor was the leader of the divine troop, the most powerful expert in the divine wilderness continent. He had never lost a battle. That was how the Baijian martial emperor got his name. But now, he had been defeated by a single attack. That was unbelievable. Xia Sheng was also shocked. The Baijian martial emperor was not weaker than him, but he had been defeated so miserably. Xia Sheng was terrified. So powerful. In the distance, Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. The middle-aged man was indeed a rank 3 martial emperor. You overestimate yourself. The middle-aged man looked down at the Baijian martial emperor and said, "Now, are you going to hand it over or not? If you don't hand it over, I'll take it myself." His voice was filled with a hint of killing intent. His meaning was clear. If the Baijian martial emperor did not hand it over, he would kill him and take it himself. The Baijian martial emperor's face turned ugly and he was not willing to give up. However, he was helpless against such an undefeatable opponent. In the end, he let out a long sigh and threw a badge at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man caught the badge and glanced at it. His face was filled with joy as he said, "It's the Heavenly King badge." Although the deity ruins mainland was much stronger than the divine wilderness mainland, it was still a speck of dust compared to the Yuan continent. It was extremely difficult to join the major forces of the Yuan continent. The Heavenly King's badge was also a supreme treasure to him. "Sir, you're not from the divine wilderness continent, right?" Xia Sheng looked at the black-robed middle-aged man with unwillingness in his eyes. Now that the Heavenly King token had fallen into the hands of the black-robed middle-aged man, the royal family no longer had a chance. Both the imperial family and the Heaven Suppression Army were shocked when they heard this. If they were not from the divine wilderness continent, could they be from overseas? That's right. I'm from the godly ruins continent, Southern God Palace. You've lived for so long, so you should have heard of it, right? The black-robed middle-aged man put away the Heavenly King token and explained in a good mood. What? Are you from the Gate of God? Xia Sheng seemed to be very surprised. His expression changed, and then he became very respectful. He cupped his fist and said to the middle-aged man in black, "So it's a master from God's Gate. Sorry for not going out to meet you. Forgive me." At the scene, the sovereigns had similar expressions as Xia Sheng. Other than being shocked, there was also a hint of respect. When the Baijian martial emperor heard this, the unwillingness in his eyes finally disappeared. Instead, it was filled with helplessness. Those below the sovereigns were at a loss. "He's really from God's Gate," Xiaofan muttered. "Senior, is God's Gate very strong?" Lu Ming asked curiously. "Of course. The Yuan realm is vast and boundless. Of course, most of the territory is the sea. The sea is endless and there are countless continents in the boundless sea. Some of the continents are not far from each other. They are gathered in a region and are called the continent group. Just like the islands in the sea, some of the islands are gathered together and are called the archipelago. It's the same for continents," Xiaofan explained. Lu Ming was secretly shocked. Outside the divine wilderness continent, there was no end to it. It was beautiful and colorful. The sea where the divine wilderness mainland is located is called the continent group of divine ruins. It's made up of dozens of large continents. Just from the name, you can tell that the continent group of Divine Ruins is the leader. The continent group of Divine Ruins is at least 10 times bigger than the Divine Wilderness mainland. There are many experts and outstanding people. The number of sovereigns is also much more than the Divine Wilderness mainland. The continent group of Divine Ruins is completely ruled by one force. That force is God's Gate. Xiaofan continued to explain. Lu Ming finally knew how strong God's Gate was. The continent group of Divine Ruins was at least 10 times bigger than the Divine Wilderness mainland and was completely ruled by one force. That was God's Gate. The so-called overlords of the Divine Wilderness mainland were as weak as babies in front of God's Gate. The black-robed middle-aged man, or rather the warship, was from God's Gate. May I know why the esteemed guest from God's Gate has come to the Divine Wilderness? The Baijian martial emperor flew into the sky and cupped his fists respectfully. The heavenly king token had been taken away by the God's Gate expert and he could only choose to forget about it. I'm here to bring opportunities to the Divine Wilderness mainland. The black-robed middle-aged man said. Bring opportunities? Xia Sheng, the Baijian martial emperor and the rest looked at each other in confusion. Rumble. 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 The warship sailed over and a few figures appeared in front of the warship. There were young and old people and all of them had powerful auras. That's right. Opportunities. Great opportunities. The black-robed middle-aged man's eyes lit up and he raised his voice. A few months ago, God's Gate suddenly received news from Yuanlu. The heavenly god sect of Yuanlu wants to select young talents from the continent group of Divine Ruins and recruit them as disciples. The God's Gate has asked them to gather all the geniuses from the continent group of Divine Ruins and head to the continent group of Divine Ruins together. When the time comes, a messenger from the heavenly god sect will arrive to select disciples. The black-robed middle-aged man's voice spread far and wide and it caused a huge commotion. What? The great sect of Yuanlu wants to select disciples from the continent group of Divine Ruins? Gosh! Is there such a thing? Since ancient times, the great sect of Yuanlu has rarely selected disciples from the continent group of Divine Ruins. Opportunities. This is great opportunities. Even the sovereigns could no longer stay calm. They were discussing excitedly. It was understandable. A heavenly king token could only allow one person to join the heavenly king hall of Yuanlu's great sect. It had already caused chaos in the central continent and caused the imperial family to fight against the heaven-guarding divine army. It could be seen how difficult and precious it was to enter the great sect of Yuanlu to cultivate. But now, there was no need for a heavenly king hall of Yuanlu to recruit disciples directly. This was great opportunities. Once one was recruited as a disciple by the great sect of Yuanlu, one would have a bright future. The cultivation environment in the great sect of Yuanlu was incomparable to the Divine Wilderness mainland. It was countless times better. Chapter 1191. Yuanlu Great Sect is coming to the Godly Ruins continent to recruit disciples? Even Xiaofan's mind was shaken, extremely shocked. However, many of the sovereigns sighed. This time, it was only for the younger generation. The older ones had no hope. However, some of the younger generation's eyes were burning with passion. May I ask, when will it start? Xia Sheng asked. 10 days later. We'll wait here for 10 days. 10 days later, the geniuses of the Godly Ruins continent who want to participate will gather here. However, I have to say that Yuanlu Great Sect's recruitment criteria is very strict. Only the top geniuses can be selected. Therefore, 10 days later, I will conduct a test. Those who pass can follow me to the Godly Ruins continent to participate in the selection of the divine sect. The black-clothed man said. Of course. Xia Sheng nodded. All right, spread the news. The black-clothed man waved his hand and boarded the warship. The people on the warship also disappeared. The warship quietly floated in the air. The battle between the imperial family and the divine army naturally came to a stop. The news about the arrival of the Divine Gate and the recruitment of disciples by the Yuanlu Great Sect spread like wildfire across the Divine Wilderness continent. Lu Ming and Xiaofan also returned to the Demon God Valley. Xiaofan, Lu Ming, Chu Luo, and the others gathered in a large hall in the Demon God Valley. When Chu Luo and the others knew the purpose of the Godly Ruins continent, they were all shocked. Lu Ming, I think this is your chance, a great chance. Xiaofan was the first to speak. Senior Xia, you want me to participate in the selection? Lu Ming said. That's right. Your talent is rare in the Godly Ruins continent. There's a great chance that you'll be selected by the Divine Sect and become a disciple of Yuanlu Great Sect. Miss Nianqing also has a chance. Xiaofan said. Lu Ming frowned slightly and fell into deep thought. To be honest, he was also very tempted. This was a great opportunity. Now, the martial emperor realm was no longer Lu Ming's goal. His goal was to climb to a higher realm. However, once one attained the monarch realm on Divine Wasteland continent, it would be very difficult for one to advance any further. So, one had to leave Divine Wasteland continent if one wanted to continue advancing. However, when he became an emperor, he would have to leave for Yuanlu alone. Not only would the journey be long, but it would also not be easy for him to join a great sect. Now was undoubtedly a very good opportunity. However, he was still worried about Martial Monarch De. If he did not deal with Martial Monarch De, he would not be able to leave in peace and head to Yuanlu to cultivate. Lu Ming, are you worried about De? As if seeing through Lu Ming's thoughts, Xiaofan asked. That's right. If I don't get rid of this person, I won't be at ease. Lu Ming said. Lu Ming, you are too short-sighted. Think about it. Even if you are chosen by the Celestial Divine Sect, you might not have to head to the Yuanlu to cultivate immediately. It is most likely possible for you to wait for a while before going. Even if you can't, once you're selected by the Divine Sect, which is a great sect in Yuanlu, there are many experts there. Any one of them can kill De. Then, you can ask an expert to kill De. Everything will be solved. Xiaofan said. His words made Lu Ming's eyes light up. That's right. If he really joined the Divine Sect and became their disciple, it would not be too difficult to ask the Divine Sect to send someone to kill De. As long as he could get rid of De, he would not have to worry about the Divine Region anymore. He could head to Yuanlu to cultivate in peace. Alright, I will participate in the selection of the Divine Sect. Lu Ming thought for a while and nodded his head. Shao Qing, what about you? Lu Ming asked Xian Yanqing. I will go wherever you go. Xian Yanqing said with a smile. Alright, we will depart in a few days. Lu Ming nodded his head. When the news of Yuanlu's great sect recruiting disciples spread, the Divine Region was in an uproar. All the overlords stopped fighting with each other. Many young geniuses started to make their way to Earth's core lake. Geniuses from Eastern Wilderness, Southern Underworld, Western Desert, and other places gathered at Earth's core lake. Soon, the 10 days were almost up. Xiaofan brought Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, Tuobashir, and other geniuses from the northern plains to Earth's core lake. The warship from the Divine Ruins mainland was still hovering above Earth's core lake. The warship was surrounded by people. They were all experts from various factions who had brought their respective geniuses over. Of course, there were also many who were there to watch the show. It was a gathering of experts. The crowd waited quietly. Soon, the warship shone. A group of people appeared at the bow of the warship. The one leading them was the middle-aged man in black. The middle-aged man in black stepped out and flew down from the warship. Behind him were two young men. They were obviously from the younger generation. One of the two young men had a smile on his face and looked very gentle. The other had a cold and arrogant expression. He looked at the people from the divine region with a hint of disdain. Younger generation, come forward. The voice of the middle-aged man in black was heard. Swoosh! 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 One by one, the figures flew forward and stopped in front of the middle-aged man in black. There were more than 1,000 of them. The middle-aged man in black frowned and said coldly, "Those below the spiritual god realm, leave. You want to participate in the selection of Yuanlu's sects?" Most of the young men looked helpless and could only step back. Suddenly, there were only a few dozen people left on the battlefield. Lu Ming looked around and realized that almost all the geniuses from the divine region mainland were here. Long Chen, Xian Yinjuan, Yang Patian, Lian Do, and the others. The underworld child from the southern sea region, the Cerberus, and the others. Other than the heartless monk and the bodhisattva from the western desert, there were 5 more young geniuses from the western desert. It was a shocking sight. Besides, Lu Ming only saw Di Shen from the eastern wilderness. Obviously, other than Di Shen, the others had not stepped into the spiritual god realm. Some of them looked at Lu Ming coldly. For example, Lian Do, Wu Qingkong, Di Shen, and the others. Di Shen. Lu Ming swept his gaze across the emperor god, a murderous intent flashing in his eyes. Di still wanted to take him down. If there was a chance, Lu Ming would kill Di Shen and collect some interest. The two young men behind the middle-aged man in black also sized up Lu Ming and the others. The young man with a smile still had a smile on his face. However, there was a burning flame in the eyes of the arrogant young man. He glanced at Xian Yinjuan, Xian Yinqing, Sandalwood Fairy, Jing Kongling, and the others. The flame in his eyes burned even brighter. I didn't expect there to be so many beautiful women in the divine region mainland. He he. The corner of the arrogant young man's mouth curled up. His heart was burning. Alright, all of you have reached the spiritual god realm. However, I still have to choose. Unless you are a top genius, ordinary geniuses will only embarrass yourselves. Now, all of you stand still. I will test your bloodline. The middle-aged man in black glanced at Lu Ming and the others. Then, a disc array appeared in his hand. The disc array glowed and flew into the sky. It expanded rapidly. Chapter 1192. After being enveloped by the light pillar, Lu Ming realized that golden rings had appeared on the bodies of the others. Those were chakras. Xian Yinqing had 9 golden chakras, while Lu Ming had 8 golden chakras. The black-robed middle-aged man glanced at them and said, "Alright, those with level 8 divine level bloodlines may leave. Only those with level 9 divine level bloodlines are qualified to participate in the celestial sect selection. Follow me." What? Those with level 8 divine level bloodlines are not qualified? Only those with level 9 divine level are qualified? Everyone was shocked by his words. This condition was a little too high, wasn't it? How many level 9 divine level prodigies were there in the entire divine region? A bunch of frogs in a well. Do you think level 9 divine level prodigies are great? Level 9 divine level prodigies may be the top in the small divine region, but what kind of place is the Yuan continent? The core of the Yuan realm, the celestial sect, is a major sect in the Yuan continent. The minimum requirement for recruiting disciples is level 9 divine level bloodlines. You want to join the celestial sect when you can't even meet the basic requirements? The icily arrogant young man sneered, revealing a mocking expression. His voice carried a haughty attitude. His words made many level 8 divine level prodigies pale, but they did not dare to refute him. Alright, Level 8 divine level prodigies, leave. The black-robed middle-aged man said again. The prodigies were helpless. Di Shen, Wu Qingkong, Jing Kongling, and the others all left. Looks like I don't have a chance. Lu Ming smiled helplessly at Xian Yinqing. It doesn't matter. If you don't go, I won't go either. Let's go. Xian Yinqing also smiled. Lu Ming nodded and flew out with Xian Yinqing. Wait. At that moment, a cold shout was heard. Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing turned around and saw the arrogant youth staring at Xian Yinqing. He did not hide the fiery light in his eyes. Lu Ming frowned and his eyes turned cold. You are a level 9 divine level prodigy. Why are you leaving? You don't want the creation anymore? The arrogant young man said to Xian Yinqing. If he can't meet the requirements, I'll go with him. If he can't go, I won't go either. Xian Yinqing looked at Lu Ming and said. Him? The arrogant young man looked at Lu Ming, his eyes filled with disdain. He's just a piece of trash at level 8 of the divine level. He doesn't even meet the requirements. What right does he have to participate? You, on the other hand, have pretty good talent. Why waste your future for a piece of trash? Come with us. These words caused Xian Yinqing's expression to turn cold. He said coldly, watch your words. Let me tell you, if he's not going, I'm not going either. Also, he's not trash. Lu Ming, let's go. Xian Yinqing pulled Lu Ming and was about to fly back. Humph. A cold snort was heard. The arrogant young man moved and appeared in front of Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing, blocking their way. He said, you've met the requirements and must go. This is not only related to your future, but also to our holy gate. Then, he looked at Lu Ming and said, Kid, if you know what's good for you, get lost. A toad lusting after a swan's meat. Do you think you're worthy of this lady? Lu Ming's expression turned completely cold. That person had looked at Xian Yinqing with malicious intent from the very start, and now, he was calling him trash again and again. Did he really think that he was that noble? Where did this wild dog come from? Why are you barking here? Get lost. Lu Ming's cold and disdainful voice was heard. The commotion here naturally attracted everyone's attention. Everyone's gazes were focused on this place. At this moment, Lu Ming's words shocked many people. This Lu Ming is really bold. How dare he scold a genius of the godly ruins continent? It's over. Lu Ming is in trouble. He's courting death. He's too arrogant. I think he's used to being arrogant in the godly wilderness continent. Some people sighed, some sneered and gloated. Kid, what did you say? As expected, the arrogant young man's eyes turned completely cold and murderous. He was a famous existence even in the godly ruins continent where geniuses were as common as clouds. Not many people in the godly ruins continent dared to speak to him like that. Now, there was someone in the godly wilderness continent who dared to speak to him like that and call him a wild dog. He was courting death. Looks like your ears aren't working well. Wild dog, get lost. Lu Ming scolded again. Kid, you're courting death. I'll cripple you. The arrogant young man was furious. A terrifying aura erupted from his body. His aura kept rising. Second level spirit god, third level spirit god, fourth level spirit god, finally, it rose to the peak of the fourth level spirit god before stopping. Peak of the fourth level spirit god. Many people were shocked and looked at the arrogant young man in shock. The arrogant young man was obviously young and belonged to the younger generation. His cultivation had already reached the fourth level spirit god. It was unbelievable. Now, the top geniuses of the godly wilderness continent such as the underworld child and Yang Patian were only at the peak of the third level spirit god. The only one who could be sure to be at the 4th-level spirit god was Long Chen. But this young man was at the peak of the 4th-level spirit god. Swoosh! The arrogant young man slapped his palm toward Lu Ming. His palm was covered in a layer of green light, and it smashed the space into pieces. Get lost! Lu Ming scolded and slapped out with his palm as well. Boom! The two palms collided and the palm force swept out like a landslide. Then, a figure staggered back 100 meters in the air with a pale face. It was the arrogant young man. He was repelled by Lu Ming with a single palm. The others were tongue-tied as they looked at Lu Ming in shock. After not seeing him for a while, Lu Ming had obviously become stronger. He could actually repel the arrogant young man with a single palm. Only Tuoba sure sneered. He knew how terrifying Lu Ming's battle strength was. Ah! You're courting death. I want you dead. The arrogant young man roared in anger. He was repelled with a single palm, and the one who repelled him was someone from the godly wilderness continent, someone he regarded as trash. He couldn't bear it. Boom! A green tree appeared above his head. There were 9 golden chakras on it, shining brightly. This person had awakened a 9th-level divine realm bloodline. He was a giant genius. This made Yang Patian, the underworld child, and the rest look extremely solemn. This person's cultivation was at the peak of the 4th-level spirit god realm, and his bloodline was also at the 9th-level divine realm. His battle strength had already surpassed them. Was there really such a genius in the godly wilderness continent? Or was this person already one of the top geniuses in the godly wilderness continent? While all kinds of thoughts flashed through everyone's mind, the arrogant young man had already used bloodline fusion and turned into a green tree. The green tree was as tall as the sky and as big as a mountain. A terrifying aura bloomed, and green light shot toward Lu Ming to suppress him. So strong, really so strong. With this kind of battle strength, an ordinary 6th-level spirit god would die for sure, and a 7th-level spirit god would be heavily injured. Let's see how Lu Ming blocks it. The arrogant young man's strength shocked many people. Even Emperor Realm experts were moved. Chapter 1193. Shatter. Lu Ming's eyes turned cold. 8 streams of dragon force erupted from his body as he threw a punch at the green wood. Boom! Lu Ming's fist landed heavily on the green wood. Then, in front of everyone's shocked eyes, the green wood exploded and turned into green energy that dissipated into the air. The figure of the arrogant youth appeared in the green light. At this moment, there was no longer any arrogance on his face. There was only disbelief, shock, and disbelief. He found it hard to believe that the strongest attack he had unleashed after using bloodline fusion was defeated by Lu Ming in one move. He found it hard to believe that there was such a strong person in the divine wilderness continent. Moreover, Lu Ming's bloodline was only at the 8th level of the divine realm. Not only him, but everyone else present was also shocked. Gosh, Lu Ming's combat strength has become even more terrifying. A peak level 4 spirit god was defeated by him in one move. With such combat strength, could it be that he can compete with Long Chen? Who knows? Many people were discussing. Even some of the sovereigns were shocked. Among the crowd, Long Chen's expression was solemn. He stared at Lu Ming, but he quickly regained his composure and calmness. Damn it! In Lion City, Underworld Child was someone who had a grudge against Lu Ming. While he was shocked, he also secretly gritted his teeth. Lu Ming had become stronger. They wanted to take revenge and defeat Lu Ming, but their hopes were even slimmer. Behind the black-robed middle-aged man, the smile on the youth's face disappeared and was replaced by a serious expression. Interesting. The black-robed middle-aged man was also surprised. Lu Ming looked at the arrogant youth indifferently and said, "This is your strength?" This is the reason you're so arrogant? You can't even take one move from me. What a joke. You keep calling me trash. Then, what are you? His voice was indifferent and full of disdain. Kid, you're dead. The arrogant youth's face turned red and he roared furiously. He stared coldly at Lu Ming, wishing he could cut Lu Ming into pieces. Whoosh! Lu Ming was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. He took a step forward and instantly appeared in front of the arrogant young man like a flickering light and passing shadow. Then, he slapped out. The arrogant youth was shocked. He didn't expect Lu Ming to still dare to attack. In a hurry, he tried his best to block, but how could he block? He was sent flying by Lu Ming's slap. Bang! Bang! Lu Ming flew up and used the 9 dragons' heaven-stomping steps, taking 7 steps in a row. Each step was aimed at the arrogant young man's face. Bang! Bang! The 7 consecutive steps landed accurately on the arrogant young man's face, leaving a row of footprints on his face. The arrogant young man's body was like a meteorite, crashing into the Earth's core lake. With a loud boom, the body of the arrogant young man fell into the Earth's core lake, causing thousands of ripples. His entire body could no longer be seen. Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Lu Ming really had guts. He couldn't have killed all the geniuses of the godly ruins continent, right? In the next moment, there was a fluctuation in the Earth's core lake, and the arrogant young man rushed out. At this moment, he was in an extremely sorry state. His hair was disheveled, and his body was in tatters. Especially his face, which had a row of footprints on it. It was extremely clear. The corner of his mouth, the corner of his eyes, and his nostrils were constantly bleeding. It was a terrible sight to behold. Arg! Arg! Bastard! I want you dead. Men! Men! Kill him for me. Kill him. The arrogant young man screamed hysterically. Enough! A cold shout was heard. It was the black-robed middle-aged man. The black-robed middle-aged man spoke, causing the arrogant young man to stop. He said, "Elder, this person is too audacious. Hurry up and kill him." I said that's enough. The black-robed middle-aged man frowned and his voice turned cold. The arrogant young man's body turned cold, and he didn't dare to say another word. He has already shown mercy. Otherwise, you would have been dead long ago. Why are you still yelling? Don't you find it embarrassing? Back off. The black-robed middle-aged man berated. The arrogant young man's face was extremely ugly. He glared at Lu Ming coldly and backed off hatefully. What's your name? The black-robed middle-aged man looked at Lu Ming. Lu Ming. Lu Ming replied in a tone that was neither humble nor arrogant. Lu Ming. Very well. With your cultivation and combat strength, you are qualified to participate in the Heavenly Divinity Sect's disciple selection. You can go to the Godly Ruins continent with us. The black-robed middle-aged man said. Elder, but his bloodline is only at level 8 Divine Realm, the arrogant young man said again. Shut up. The black-robed middle-aged man berated, causing the arrogant young man to shut up. Bloodline is very important to the major sects in Yuanlu. However, it isn't the only criterion to determine one's talent. Other aspects are also very important. The black-robed middle-aged man said. Elder, I'm sorry. I don't want to go. Lu Ming cupped his fists at the black-robed middle-aged man and said. These words caused everyone to be stunned. Lu Ming had the opportunity to participate in the selection of the major sects in Yuanlu. However, he didn't want to go now. Even the black-robed middle-aged man was stunned. He found it hard to believe that someone would reject such an opportunity. Why don't you want to go? The black-robed middle-aged man asked. Lu Ming glanced at the arrogant young man and said, "If the godly ruins continent is filled with trash like you, then I don't want to go." "Huh." The black-robed middle-aged man smiled. He understood that Lu Ming was unhappy about it. Lu Ming, the heavenly divinity sect, seems to place great importance in this selection. Once you are selected, you will be put in an important position. Our divine sect also places great importance in this selection. As long as you are selected by the heavenly divinity sect, the divine sect will reward you handsomely. The black-robed middle-aged man looked at Lu Ming and said with a gentle smile. He was indeed stunned by Lu Ming's combat strength. It was indeed rare for a level 8 divine realm bloodline to have such combat strength. Besides, the black-robed middle-aged man looked at the arrogant young man and said, "Mu Feng, apologize to Lu Ming." "What? Elder, you want me to apologize to him?" "Impossible. Absolutely impossible." The arrogant young man screamed. "Is that so?" The black-robed middle-aged man looked at Mu Feng with sharp eyes. Mu Feng's face changed drastically. He gritted his teeth and his expression changed. In the end, he gritted his teeth and stepped out. He cupped his fists at Lu Ming and said, "Lu Ming, I was wrong just now." Having said that, he turned around and walked to the side. Lu Ming smiled faintly and was too lazy to be bothered by it. "Lu Ming, what do you think?" the black-robed middle-aged man asked. "Senior is so sincere. How can I reject it?" Lu Ming said. He had rejected the black-robed middle-aged man because he was unhappy. However, he did not want to miss such an opportunity. "All right, the 12 of you will board the ship with us and head to the Divine Ruins mainland," the black-robed middle-aged man announced. "Senior, please wait for a moment. I still have something to do. 10 minutes will suffice." At this moment, Lu Ming spoke again. The black-robed middle-aged man was taken aback and said, "All right, it's fine. Thank you, Senior." Lu Ming cupped his fists and turned around to look at someone. Di Shen. Swoosh. Kill. Chapter 1194. The Emperor God's expression changed drastically. He had not expected Lu Ming to attack him on such an occasion. Shocked, the Emperor God activated the space will and used the instantaneous step to retreat. However, Lu Ming's palm pierced through the space. A terrifying force rushed toward the Emperor God. "Block it!" The Emperor God was shocked. He roared in his heart and used all his strength to block it. At the same time, he activated the space will to the extreme. Boom! A terrifying force gushed out. The Emperor God's body flew 1,000 meters away. He spat out blood and his face was pale. Kill! Lu Ming stepped forward and continued to attack the Emperor God. Lu Ming, there was a long howl between heaven and earth. A dazzling golden light bloomed. A shocking sword chi appeared in the sky and slashed toward Lu Ming. It was De. Today, all the emperors had gathered. Naturally, he was also present. However, Lu Ming's sudden attack on the Emperor God was also beyond his expectations. At this moment, his murderous intent was piercingly cold. De, why are you interfering in the affairs of the younger generation? If you want to fight, I'll accompany you. Demonic chi soared into the sky. A vast demonic light defeated De's sword chi. Xiaofan appeared in front of De. Xiaofan, get lost! De shouted and attacked Xiaofan. Don't you know how to respect your seniors? Xiaofan smiled faintly and fought with De. Lu Ming did not stop. He used his extreme speed and quickly approached the Emperor God. The Emperor God frantically activated the space will to escape. Seal! Lu Ming said indifferently. He used the 9 seals of the God's Gate. Two doors of seals appeared on the left and right sides of the Emperor God. They emitted a dazzling light and suppressed the Emperor God. The Emperor God suddenly felt that the space around him was like a swamp, making it difficult for him to move. Space, chaos. The Emperor God's eyes turned red. He roared crazily and used a self-harming method to escape from behind. However, he was in despair. At this moment, another door of seals appeared behind him and enveloped him. 3 sealing gates. After this period of cultivation, Lu Ming of Divine Gate 9 seals had also made a breakthrough, allowing him to condense 3 sealing gates. No! Di Shen screamed in horror. He could not escape. Lu Ming slowly walked up and punched the dantian of the monarch god. A terrifying power surged into the monarch god's dantian and penetrated it, causing the monarch god to vomit blood. Stop! Di Shen's angry voice came from above. Stop? De, why didn't you stop when you went to kill me? Lu Ming laughed and swung his hand down like a blade, cutting the monarch god's head into 2 halves. Di Shen, who stood at the top of the younger generation in the eastern wilderness and ranked first on the list of top 1,000 talents, was dead. Boom! In the sky, there was a huge explosion. De and Xiaofan had exchanged a blow. The 2 of them retreated far away and did not continue fighting. De's gaze was very cold as he looked at Lu Ming. His murderous intent was so thick that it could not dissipate. Lu Ming sneered and looked at De. Didn't De rely on his high cultivation to take him down and rob him of the 9 dragons' bloodline? Then he would kill his strongest descendant now and collect some interest. Lu Ming, good job killing him. That's how a man should be. Take revenge. Xiaofan laughed, making the Imperial Xia family members' faces turn ugly. De, I'll kill Di Shen today. I'll kill you in the future. Lu Ming said. His voice spread out like a storm. The people of the divine region were shocked. Just now, Xiaofan and De had fought for a short time. The combat strength displayed was amazing, far exceeding that of an ordinary emperor. However, Lu Ming's courage was even more amazing. He said that he would kill De in the future. De was so powerful. How could Lu Ming be so confident? I'll be waiting. De said coldly. He glanced at Xiaofan and the people of the divine region. Then he turned around and disappeared with a step. Interesting. The middle-aged man in black whispered. He was even more interested. Senior, I'm done with my business. Lu Ming came to the middle-aged man in black and cupped his fists. The middle-aged man in black nodded. Senior, I have a question. At that moment, a voice was heard. Everyone looked over and saw that it was Long Chen. What's the matter? Ask away. The middle-aged man in black said. Senior, if I'm selected by the Yuanlu sect and recruited as a disciple, do I have to go to Yuanlu immediately? If I want to return to the divine region to settle some personal matters, I need some time. Do you allow me to do so? Long Chen asked. The others had the same expression, including Lu Ming. That was the question he wanted to ask. You're dreaming. Who do you think you are? The Yuanlu sect will select you? I'm just giving you a chance to go. However, the chances are slim. Don't overestimate yourself. Before the middle-aged man in black could answer, Mu Feng sneered and looked at Long Chen disdainfully. Long Chen glanced at Mu Feng indifferently. Then, he ignored him and continued to look at the middle-aged man in black. The middle-aged man in black frowned. Apparently, he did not like Mu Feng's temper. He glanced at Mu Feng coldly and Mu Feng's expression changed again. He shut his mouth obediently. The Yuanlu sect is naturally reasonable. They will definitely allow you to do so. After all, you have to settle your personal matters before going to Yuanlu. Then, you can focus on your cultivation. The middle-aged man in black said and gave a definite answer. Lu Ming secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Even if he was selected by the Yuanlu sect, he would have to return to settle some matters. First of all, he would not be at ease if he did not settle De. In addition, his second body was still cultivating in the sacred mansion's secret land. When he went to Yuanlu in the future, he would have to bring his second body along. Do you have any other questions? Ask all at once so that you won't have any doubts. The middle-aged man in black said. Everyone shook their heads to show that they did not have any more questions. All right, since you don't have any more questions, get on the ship. The middle-aged man in black said. Then, he turned around and flew onto the warship. Lu Ming and the rest of the 12 people also flew onto the warship. The warship was huge and extremely wide. The deck was a few thousand meters long and wide. Behind the deck, there was a large door. Inside the door were some houses. Mu Feng glanced coldly at Lu Ming and the rest, especially at Xian Yinjuan and Xian Yinqing. He snorted coldly and took the lead to walk into the door. Brother Lu. I'm Yi Chuan. At that moment, a young man came before Lu Ming and cupped his fists. Lu Ming recognized him. He was one of the two young men behind the middle-aged man in black. He had a smile on his face and looked very gentle. Brother Yi, what's the matter? Lu Ming asked. It's nothing serious. I admire Brother Lu's combat strength, so I want to make friends with you. Yi Chuan said with a smile. Brother Yi, you're too polite. How can my insignificant skills be compared with the supreme talents of the Divine Ruins continent? Lu Ming said politely. Chapter 1195. Oh. Thank you for your reminder, Brother Yi. Lu Ming clasped his fists. You're welcome. Brother Lu and Miss, this way please. This ship is not small. There's something else inside. Let me show you around. Yi Chuan said with a smile. Since Yi Chuan was so enthusiastic, Lu Ming could not refuse. He and Xian Yinqing followed Yi Chuan through the door. Of course, Tuoba Shi had been following behind Lu Ming. Now that the 100-beast tribe had surrendered to Lu Ming and Tuoba Shi had been defeated by Lu Ming in one move, he admired Lu Ming very much. Thus, he became Lu Ming's subordinate and stayed by Lu Ming's side. The warship was really big. It had everything, including living rooms, cultivation rooms, alchemy rooms, and weapon forging rooms. There was even a restaurant where they could order food and drinks. However, they had to pay with origin stones. Yi Chuan brought Lu Ming and the others around, which was an eye-opener for Lu Ming and the others. In the end, Lu Ming and the others randomly chose a room to stay in. Although the speed of the ship was extremely fast, the distance between the Divine Wilderness continent and the Divine Ruins continent was too far. Even with the ship, it would take a month to fly. Therefore, they would have to spend the time on the ship. Rumble. The hull of the ship shook slightly. The ship started and flew towards the north at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared above the Earth's core lake. After the ship started flying, it completely stabilized as if it was on flat ground. Lu Ming walked into the room and closed his eyes to rest. Half a day later, Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing went to the restaurant to eat. When they arrived at the restaurant, they saw a few familiar faces. Lion Capital and Kong Lin were sitting at a table. When they saw Lu Ming, their eyes flashed with deep fear. Previously, Lu Ming had defeated Mu Feng in one move. His combat strength had shocked them. In addition, Lu Ming also saw Long Chen sitting alone at a table, slowly drinking wine. At another table, Lu Ming saw two bald heads. It was Moonless and Monk Wuliang. At this moment, Moonless was slowly sipping his tea while Monk Wuliang picked up a large piece of demonic beast meat and chewed on it. His mouth was filled with oil. Seeing Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing, Monk Wuliang called out, "Almsgiver Lu, Miss Xia, come, this way please, my treat." "Grandmaster, please go ahead. I won't disturb you any further." Lu Ming smiled and walked to the side with Xian Yanqing. On the other side of the table, a beautiful woman in white sat alone. She was Xian Yanjuan. Seeing Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing, Xian Yanjuan's cold eyes landed on Xian Yanqing. He coldly said, "When we return to the divine wilderness continent, I will personally capture you and suppress you in the 9 underworlds." "You? Don't worry, there's no need to return to the divine wilderness. In the divine ruins, I will trample you under my feet." Xian Yanqing spoke, tit for tat. With that, she pulled Lu Ming and walked to a table at the side, ignoring Xian Yanjuan. At the entrance of a passage, Mu Feng saw this scene. So these two beautiful women who look almost the same are not in the same group. It seems like they have a grudge. Hee, then I'll take down the white-clothed woman first. As for Lu Ming and the black-clothed woman, when we return to the divine ruins continent, humph. Mu Feng coldly snorted. Xian Yanqing and Xian Yanjuan, this pair of sisters, were peerless beauties. However, their temperaments were different. It really moved Mu Feng's heart and made his heart burn. Originally, when he saw Xian Yanqing and Lu Ming walking so close, he thought that Xian Yanjuan was also in the same group as Lu Ming. He was afraid of Lu Ming and did not dare to make a move. However, now that he saw that Xian Yanjuan and Lu Ming were not in the same group, his heart immediately became active. Revealing a smile that he thought was charming, Mu Feng walked towards Xian Yanjuan. He came to Xian Yanjuan's table and said, "Miss, may I sit here?" Xian Yanjuan coldly glanced at Mu Feng, but did not say anything. Mu Feng's eyes narrowed slightly as he sat down and said, "My name is Mu Feng. I believe that Miss should have heard of me before. There are many things that Miss needs to pay attention to when you go to the Divine Ruins continent. This is because the Divine Ruins is not like the Divine Wilderness. The Divine Wilderness is a small place, but there are many experts and geniuses in the Divine Ruins." Mu Feng's tone revealed a trace of arrogance. It was as if he was saying, "You people from a small place have to pay more attention when you go to a big place. But it doesn't matter, I can give you some advice." In Mu Feng's heart, the fact that he could tell Xian Yanjuan these things already showed that he was taking care of her. Scram! A cold voice came out of Xian Yanjuan's mouth and spread throughout the restaurant. Mu Feng's words came to an abrupt end. Then, a cold light burst out from his eyes as he said, "Miss, what are you talking about?" "Scram, can't you hear me?" Xian Yanjuan said coldly. There was a trace of disgust in her eyes as she looked at Mu Feng. "How dare you, you bitch! I kindly reminded you, but you don't know how to appreciate my kindness. You dare to insult me. Now, kneel down and apologize." Mu Feng's face was incomparably gloomy as he coldly berated. His heart was filled with anger. In the beginning, it was Lu Ming who dared to injure him. His stomach was filled with anger. Now, even a Xian Yanjuan dared to berate him. Who did she think he was? Xian Yanjuan glanced at Mu Feng with disdain, then stood up and turned to leave. Since Mu Feng shamelessly refused to leave, she could only leave. "Bitch, if you want to leave, kneel down and admit your mistake. Be my servant for 3 years." Mu Feng coldly shouted as he sent a palm strike towards Xian Yanjuan. Xian Yanjuan turned around and sent out a palm strike. Bang! When the two palms collided, Xian Yanjuan's body trembled and she took 5 steps back. However, Mu Feng also took 3 steps back. 4th level Spirit God. You have some ability. However, you just broke through to the 4th level Spirit God. It's still too early for you to fight me. Mu Feng's face changed at first. Clearly, he didn't expect that an expert like Lu Ming would appear in a mere divine wilderness continent. Now, this woman's cultivation was actually so profound, reaching the 4th-level spirit god. But immediately, Mu Feng's face turned colder and the fiery light in his eyes blazed even more. Whoosh! Whoosh! Mu Feng's palm strike continuously enveloped Xianyinjuan. Whoosh! At this moment, a wine cup broke through the void and flew towards Mu Feng's face. The wine cup carried a terrifying gale that disrupted Mu Feng's palm strike. Who is it? You're courting death. Mu Feng smashed the wine cup with a palm strike. His cold gaze swept across the scene and finally landed on Long Chen. The wine cup had just flown out from Long Chen's hand. Kid, it's you? Mu Feng stared coldly at Long Chen. Let her go. Long Chen said calmly. Huh, kid, who do you think you are? You're overestimating yourself. I'll cripple you right now and see what you're capable of. Mu Feng coldly shouted. Rage soared in his heart. These trash from the divine wilderness continent actually didn't put him in their eyes. They were simply hateful and deserved to die. Did they really think he was a pushover? First it was Lu Ming, then it was Xianyinjuan, and now it was Long Chen. Chapter 1196. With his talent, although he was also a genius in the Divine Ruins continent, he was not considered the top. His status was very awkward, so he applied to come to the Divine Wilderness continent. He originally thought that he could be awe-inspiring in the Divine Wilderness continent and suppress all the so-called geniuses under his feet. In his imagination, wouldn't the country bumpkins of the Divine Wilderness continent try to curry favor with him? Some of them would even throw themselves at him. However, the reality was far from what he had imagined. In the beginning, he was beaten up badly by Lu Ming. However, the elder seemed to value Lu Ming's talent and asked him to apologize. Now, Xianyinjuan and Long Chen were the same. He wanted to make a move. He wanted to cripple Long Chen as an example so that the others in the Divine Wilderness continent would be afraid of him and Xianyinjuan would obediently throw herself at him. He strode towards Long Chen. On the side, Lu Ming, Xianyincheng, unscrupulous monk, Lion Do, and the others watched with interest. Long Chen was now engaged to Xianyinlin, and Xianyinjuan was Xianyinlin's sister. If Xianyinjuan was in trouble, Long Chen would naturally not sit idly by. They were curious that Mu Feng wanted to fight Long Chen. They did not know if Mu Feng could test Long Chen's strength. Swoosh! Mu Feng was very direct. He directly attacked Long Chen with his palm. The wind from his palm whistled, and the energy surged in the restaurant. Nonetheless, this was the interior of the cross-sea spaceship. The entire spaceship was made of an extremely hard metal, and its entire body was engraved with inscriptions. Even a ruler would not be able to easily destroy it, so it could naturally block the force. Get lost! Long Chen sat still and slapped out with his palm. Bang! When the palms collided, Mu Feng's body was pushed back 7 or 8 steps. As for Long Chen, he was still sitting there, motionless. Damn it! Mu Feng roared, his face flushed red. The aura on his body became more violent, and the bloodline on his head appeared. He shouted and attacked Long Chen again. Apart from the fact that he didn't use bloodline fusion, this was his strongest move. He did not believe it. He did not believe that the people of the Divine Wilderness continent were so strong. Long Chen stood up. One of his arms suddenly became thicker. It was twice as thick as usual. He threw a punch. This punch smashed through all of Mu Feng's attacks and landed on Mu Feng's palm. Gotcha! Mu Feng's palm was completely deformed. He screamed as his body flew far away like a kite with its string cut. He slammed heavily into the wall and coughed up blood. At the side, Monk Wuliang, Sherdou, and the others narrowed their eyes and looked at Long Chen with solemn eyes. Long Chen's combat strength has become stronger again. Lu Ming's heart stirred. It was the same move that Zhang Xian had used to defeat Tuoba Shi back in the Holy City, and now, he had defeated Mu Feng with a single move. Other than the people from the Divine Wilderness continent, the people from the Divine Ruins continent were even more shocked. Looks like the Divine Wilderness continent has produced a few outstanding geniuses. Some people from the Godly Ruins continent sighed. Scram! Long Chen's gaze landed on Mu Feng. Mu Feng struggled to get up. His eyes were about to spit fire. He was aggrieved. He originally thought that he could show off in the Divine Wilderness continent, but he did not expect to be beaten up again and again. You guys wait for me. Mu Feng left behind a ruthless sentence and retreated dejectedly. Long Chen continued to sit down and drink. The scene returned to calm. Lu Ming, if you go against Long Chen, are you confident? Xian Yanqing transmitted his voice to Lu Ming. I don't know. Lu Ming shook his head and said, I know too little about Long Chen. I don't know what his bloodline is. I don't even know his specific cultivation. It's difficult to measure it. Looks like you have an opponent. Xian Yanqing said with a smile. Don't worry. In the future, I will suppress all my enemies. The man you like will be invincible. Lu Ming said with a smile. He was full of confidence. How could he be so confident? When his 9 Dragons bloodline and the prison-suppressing Steel bloodline both reached level 9 of the Divine Realm, his combat strength would increase greatly. He would be invincible against those of the same level. Shameless. Xian Yanqing blushed slightly and rolled his eyes at Lu Ming. However, his eyes were filled with a happy smile. After eating and drinking for a while, Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing paid the bill and left. After walking around the ship for a while, they came to the deck. Outside, the wind was howling. With the speed of the cross-sea ship, the wind formed by breaking through space was terrifyingly powerful. As long as anyone below the spirit god realm came to the deck, they would be crushed into pieces by the storm. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing emitted their true essence to block the storm. They looked around. What entered their eyes was an endless ocean. On the ocean, the wind howled. Under the ocean, the waves were thousands of layers and tens of thousands of meters high. The scene was spectacular. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing held hands and looked at this spectacular scene together. A month's time was very short for cultivators. It passed in the blink of an eye. A month later, they arrived at the Godly Ruins continent and entered the territory of the Godly Ruins continent. The geniuses of the Godly Wilderness continent gathered on the deck and looked at the magnificent mountains and rivers below. What rich spiritual qi of heaven and earth! The spiritual qi is mixed with rich origin qi. Tuoba Shi took a deep breath and looked intoxicated. Not bad. This cultivation environment is much better than the Godly Wilderness continent. Even if an emperor cultivates here, it would be easier for him to break through. The conditions are much better than the Godly Wilderness continent. Lu Ming sensed carefully. The Godly Ruins continent not only had rich spiritual qi and origin qi, but it also seemed to be easier to comprehend the concept of heaven and earth. Cultivating in such an environment would naturally be faster and there would be more experts. It's said that the Godly Ruins continent is still worlds apart from the Yuanlu. I wonder what the cultivation environment of the Yuanlu is like. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with anticipation. The warship flew quickly in the air and endless mountains and rivers passed by below. After another 2 days, a vast ancient city appeared in front of them. Everyone, that ancient city is where the South God Palace of the God sect is located. You will be staying in the South God Palace for the next 3 months. The black-robed middle-aged man said. For the celestial god sect's selection of disciples, I will briefly explain the process and the situation of the Godly Ruins continent. The God sect reigns supreme in the Godly Ruins continent. The God sect is divided into the north, south, east and west god palaces. However, the four great god palaces each govern a region and have been governed separately for countless years. Therefore, although the four great god palaces belong to the God sect, they can be considered as four forces. They compete with each other and even fight. The Godly Ruins continent has a total of 42 continents called the Godly Ruins continent group. The four great god palaces are in charge of one direction. The Godly Wilderness continent is in the south of the Godly Ruins continent and belongs to the South God Palace. There are a total of 9 continents. When the geniuses of the 9 continents gather, we will head to the ancient city of the Godly Ruins in 3 months. Chapter 1197. Everyone nodded. So that was how it was. As for the geniuses of the Divine Wilderness continent, they were secretly shocked. There were actually a total of 42 continents around the Divine Wilderness continent. The vast Divine Wilderness continent was actually just one of them. It was truly shocking. It was said that there were many such continents in the entire Yuan realm. It was simply impossible to count. No one knew how big the Yuan realm was. Alright, I'll tell you all this first. As for the details of the celestial sect's selection of disciples, I'll tell you all when the 9 continents gather. Now, we need to fly into the southern divine palace. After the black-robed man finished speaking, he stepped out and flew out of the sea-crossing ship. Mu Feng, Yi Chuan, and some other people from the Divine Wilderness continent, including Lu Ming and the rest, flew out to look at the sea-crossing ship. Then, the sea-crossing ship turned around and flew in another direction. They stepped into the air and flew towards the southern divine palace. The ancient city in front of them belonged to the southern divine palace. It was very vast and there were countless people living inside. When the powerhouses guarding the ancient city saw the black-robed man, they bowed respectfully. They entered the ancient city without any obstructions. The ancient city was really huge. It was like a small world inside with mountains and lakes. Soon, everyone landed on a square. Wait here for a while. Soon, someone will arrange your accommodations. The black-robed man said, then rose into the air and disappeared. Beside him, Mu Feng's face was cold. He took out a voice transmission jade talisman and sent a message. Then, a cold smile appeared on his face. Soon, 2 middle-aged burly men flew over and landed in front of Lu Ming and the rest. You must be the prodigies from the Divine Wilderness continent. Come with us. We'll arrange your accommodations. After saying that, they rose into the air. Lu Ming and the rest followed. Not far from the square, there were 2 mountain peaks. The 2 mountain peaks were connected. There were 2 peaks, one tall and one short. They were like brothers. From afar, one could see that there were courtyards built on both mountain peaks. The 2 burly men led them and flew towards the tall mountain peak. Soon, they landed on the mountain peak. The mountain peak was filled with rich spiritual qi and origin qi. Ancient trees towered into the sky, and there were spiritual beasts running around. The environment was very good. Some courtyards were built in the forest. This mountain is called the General's Peak, and that short mountain is called the Soldier's Peak. It's as if the soldiers are paying their respects to the general. A muscular man casually introduced. Lu Ming and the others looked over. Indeed, that short mountain peak was like a soldier greeting a general. From their side, they could overlook the Soldier Peak. You can choose any courtyard to stay in here. Alright, we've brought you the location. Let's go. A brawny man said. Then, the 2 brawny men left the place. My hair, this little monk will choose this courtyard. Junior sister Wuyue, do you want to stay with me? Monk Wuliang chanted the name of Buddha and walked towards a courtyard. Before he left, he glanced at Moonless and asked. Moonless ignored Monk Wuliang and found another courtyard to enter. There were many courtyards here, and they could choose as they pleased. Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing strolled around for a while. They chose a courtyard near the cliff and walked in. The courtyard was elegant, and there were several rooms that could accommodate several people. Moreover, the environment was elegant, so the two of them were quite satisfied. Time passed quickly, and it had been 3 days since Lu Ming and the others arrived at Southern God Palace. On this day, another spaceship arrived outside the ancient city. A group of people flew out of it. Is this the Southern God Palace of the Godly Ruins continent? Among the crowd, there were more than a dozen youths. Their eyes lit up as they looked at the ancient city in front of them excitedly. After that, they flew into the ancient city like Lu Ming and the others and landed on the square. Soon, a young man and a brawny man flew over. That young man was Mu Feng. Friends from the Godly Crocodile continent, your accommodations have been arranged. Follow us. Mu Feng said. The sky prides of the Godly Crocodile continent nodded. There were a total of 15 of them. They followed Mu Feng and the brawny man and flew in a direction. They were heading towards the direction where Lu Ming and the others were staying. However, they did not arrive at the General's Peak, but at the Soldier's Peak. They landed on the Soldier's Peak. Brother Mu, I think the scenery on that peak is better. Can we stay on that peak? A young man from the Godly Crocodile continent looked up at the General's Peak and asked. Brother Crocodile, I'm sorry. That peak is already occupied by a continent. Mu Feng said with a smile. Occupied by a continent? Which continent? Not only that young man, but the other young men from the Godly Crocodile continent were also shocked. The Soldier's Peak was obviously shorter than the General's Peak. They had to look up and it made them uncomfortable. It's the people from the Godly Wilderness continent. The peak where the people from the Godly Wilderness continent live is called the General's Peak. This peak is called the Soldier's Peak. Mu Feng explained. General's Peak? Soldier's Peak? Ridiculous. Why should the people from the Godly Wilderness continent live on the General's Peak and we live on the Soldier's Peak? What right does the Godly Wilderness continent have to live on the General's Peak? I've heard of the Godly Wilderness continent. Legend has it that in ancient times, the Godly Wilderness continent was ranked far behind our Godly Crocodile continent. What right do they have to live there? Mu Feng's words made the sky prides of the Godly Crocodile continent furious. The General's Peak and the Soldier's Peak were obvious. Didn't that mean that the Godly Crocodile continent were the soldiers and the Godly Wilderness continent were the generals? How preposterous. Everyone, this is the arrangement of the Elder of Southern God Palace. Maybe the Elder thinks that the sky prides from the Godly Wilderness continent are stronger? However, in Southern God Palace, everything is based on strength. Those who are stronger will naturally be able to live in a better place. Alright, everyone, you can stay here. I'll take my leave first. After Mu Feng finished speaking, he turned and flew away with the middle-aged man. Mu Feng's lips curled into a smug smile. Godly Wilderness continent, aren't you very powerful? Then I'll let you have a taste of the power of the Godly Crocodile continent's sky prides. Mu Feng sneered. That's right. Mu Feng had arranged the accommodations through his connections. It wasn't too difficult to arrange the accommodations. He had purposely arranged for the Godly Wilderness continent to live on the General's Peak and the Godly Crocodile continent, a relatively strong continent, to live on the Soldier's Peak. It was to provoke the conflict between the two continents. If the Godly Wilderness continent didn't let him off, he wouldn't let them off either. After Mu Feng left, the sky prides of the Godly Crocodile continent shouted. Just now, Mu Feng said that in Southern God Palace, everything is based on strength. How dare the godly wilderness continent live on top of our godly crocodile continent? What right do they have? Since it's based on strength, then get the people from the godly wilderness continent down here. The general's peak is ours. Who's going to attack first? I'll go. I alone am enough to deal with the godly wilderness continent. Chapter 1198. For the past 3 days, Lu Ming had been cultivating in seclusion, comprehending the will of heaven and earth and comprehending martial skills. The cultivation environment of the Divine Ruins continent was indeed better than the Divine Wilderness continent. He felt that it was easier to cultivate here than on the Divine Wilderness continent. Suddenly, a violent roar came from outside. Lu Ming opened his eyes in surprise. There were people fighting outside, but who was fighting here? Lu Ming got up, opened the door, and walked out. When he saw Xian Yinqing walking out of his room, both of them were surprised. When they walked out of the courtyard, they saw that the sky not far away was filled with dazzling light and energy. Some people were watching from the sky. Monk Wuliang, Yang Patian, Underworld Child, Tuoba, and the others were all there. On the other side, there were more than a dozen unknown young men. Lu Ming looked at the battlefield. It was Shirdu fighting with a young man in scaled armor. At this moment, Shirdu had already transformed into his original form. He was a majestic golden lion. His entire body was dazzling with golden flames dancing around him. Shirdu was stronger than when he was in the holy city. His cultivation had also broken through to the 3rd level of the spirit god realm. With a long roar, heaven and earth shook, and the mountains trembled. However, Shirdu was completely at a disadvantage at this moment. The young man in scaled armor was obviously much stronger than Shirdu. His punches made Shirdu tumble in the air. What a majestic lion. Not bad, quite mighty. What do you think? Be my mount in the future and follow me to eat and drink well. The young man in scaled armor mocked, making Shirdu even more furious. His roar shook the sky. Swoosh! Swoosh! In the distance, a figure flashed and flew towards them. Obviously, they were alarmed by the battle here. Many of them were young men. Lu Ming guessed that they might be geniuses from other continents or Southern God Palace's own geniuses. Hee, they're really fighting. Mu Feng sneered in the crowd. He hadn't gone far when he heard the commotion and rushed back to watch the show. Which 2 continents are these geniuses from? Someone asked. The Divine Wilderness continent and the Divine Crocodile continent. Mu Feng replied. Oh. So it's these 2 continents. In ancient times, the Divine Alligator continent's ranking has always been very high. At its peak, it even made it into the top 10. On the other hand, the Divine Wilderness continent's ranking has always been below average. I wonder how it is now. I heard that the Divine Crocodile continent is very powerful. Although they might not be able to enter the top 10, they are not too weak. Most of the geniuses of the Divine Barren continent are no match for them. That lion of the Divine Wilderness continent is about to be defeated. The surrounding onlookers were discussing animatedly. Tuoba, what happened? Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing came to Tuoba side and asked. General Lu, they are from the godly crocodile continent. Originally, they were assigned to the Soldier's Peak. Now, they want to drive us to the Soldier's Peak. They are living in the General's Peak. Tuoba explained. With just one sentence, Lu Ming understood. The General Peak was high and mighty, overlooking the Soldier Peak. The sky prides of the godly crocodile continent were proud and arrogant. How could they be looked down upon by the sky prides of other continents? Boom! In the sky, Shirdu roared madly. However, it was useless. The difference in their combat strength was too great. Sherdou's cultivation was at the third level of the spirit god realm. However, his opponent's cultivation was at the peak of the fourth level of the spirit god realm. The difference was too great. Moreover, without a doubt, those who were able to participate in the heavenly god sect selection must have awakened a ninth-level divine bloodline. Bam! After exchanging a few more blows, Sherdou spat out a mouthful of blood and fell heavily on the ground of the general's peak. You want to participate in the Yuanlu sect selection with such strength? You are overestimating yourself. The scaled youth stood in the sky and looked down at Sherdou. Sherdou roared. He was extremely sullen. However, he was not as strong as his opponent. The other people of the Divine Wilderness continent did not look too good either. After all, they were all from the Divine Wilderness continent. No matter what kind of conflicts they had on the Divine Wilderness continent, they were all on the same side in the Divine Ruins continent. The scaled youth's eyes were cold and arrogant. He continued to stare at Sherdou and said, "What do you think? Be my mount." "In your dreams." Sherdou roared. "Then I will beat you until you become my mount." There is also a peacock with the 5 elements peacock bloodline. It is not bad. I will take it as my mount too. This trip is not bad. After saying that, the scaled youth glanced at Kong Lin and a ferocious look flashed across his eyes. Then, he continued to attack Sherdou. "Sherdou, I will help you." Kong Lin's expression was unsightly. He let out a long cry and turned into a 5-colored peacock. He pounced at the scaled youth. Sherdou saw the opportunity and cooperated with Kong Lin. The two of them fought against the scaled youth. What's the use of working together?" The scaled youth sneered. A huge crocodile appeared above his head. 9 golden chakras shone around the crocodile. Divine Beast, Overlord Crocodile. The scaled youth performed bloodline fusion and turned into a huge Overlord Crocodile. "You will be defeated." The Overlord Crocodile roared. Its tail swept out like a divine whip and hit Kong Lin. The 5 elements divine light on Kong Lin's body was shattered. He wailed and 5-colored feathers flew. His body was sent flying. At the same time, the Overlord Crocodile's palm hit Sherdou and sent him flying. Sherdou and Kong Lin were no match for the scaled youth. "Trash. You can barely be my mounts. How dare you resist?" The Overlord Crocodile glanced at them and said disdainfully. Then, it looked at Lu Ming, Underworld Child, Yang Patian, and the rest. "I will say it again. The Divine Crocodile Continent wants General Peak. If you know what's good for you, get lost. Otherwise, I will fight you one by one." How arrogant. Tuobashir licked his lips. He wanted to fight, but his cultivation had not broken through to the 4th-level spirit god realm. He knew that he was no match for the scaled youth. "My hair." Heartless Monk chanted Buddha's name and squinted his eyes. However, it was obvious that no one would leave this place easily. "You don't want to get lost? Then I will fight you one by one." An ominous glint flashed in the giant crocodile's eyes as it swept its gaze over the crowd. In the end, it landed on the Underworld Child and said, "The next one is you. Just now, you revealed killing intent towards me. Don't think I didn't sense it. Kneel." The Overlord Crocodile was very domineering. As soon as it finished speaking, a beam of light shot out from its eyes and blasted towards Underworld Child. Underworld Child's eyes turned cold. Endless underworld chi erupted. Within the underworld chi, there were waves of ghostly wails and wolf howls. It was extremely horrifying. A saber appeared in his hand. It was a black curved saber. Evil spirits appeared on it. They were extremely lifelike as if they were about to crawl out. Whoosh! Underworld Child held the curved saber in his hand and slashed out, shattering the beam of light shot out by the Overlord Crocodile. At the same time, Underworld Child rose into the air and stood in front of the Overlord Crocodile. A powerful aura erupted. 4th level Spirit God Realm. Obviously, Underworld Child had also made a breakthrough during this period and stepped into the 4th level Spirit God Realm. If you want to fight, I will accompany you. A cold voice came from Underworld Child's mouth. 4th level Spirit God Realm. The Divine Wilderness continent finally has a decent figure. However, you have just broken through to the 4th level Spirit God Realm. You want to fight me? You are still far from it. Chapter 1199. Bang! 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 The Emperor Crocodile's 4 limbs stepped into the air, releasing rumbling sounds as it crawled towards Underworld Child. Its entire body's scales shone, and it opened its mouth to roar, appearing extremely sinister. Whoosh! A huge claw slammed down at the Underworld Child. The nether energy around the Underworld Child grew thicker as the bloodline of the Grim Reaper appeared above his head. He didn't hide anything. Facing such a powerful enemy, Underworld Child used his bloodline fusion to transform into a death god. The death god scythe swung towards the giant crocodile. Clang! The death god scythe struck the Overlord Crocodile's claws, emitting the sound of metal clashing. Sparks flew in all directions. The death god transformed from the Underworld Child stepped on the void and retreated continuously. However, the giant crocodile's body trembled, and it didn't immediately give chase. So it can attack the soul directly. Unfortunately, it's not powerful enough to do anything to me. Kill. The Overlord Crocodile was a bit surprised. Its body began to glow, and it let out a furious roar as it charged toward the Underworld Child. Underworld Child's expression changed drastically. The Grim Reaper's body began to split apart. In the end, it turned into 12 Grim Reapers and surrounded the giant crocodile. The Netherchild's 12 Citadel battle formation. Whoosh! 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 12 Death God avatars and 12 Death God scythes slashed at the giant crocodile. Petty tricks. The great Emperor Crocodile's voice rang out. Its tail swept out, shattering space. 7 or 8 Death Gods were sent flying. The remaining Death Gods were also sent flying by the Overlord Crocodile's claws. As for the Overlord Crocodile, its body merely trembled a few times, and light spread out as if it was blocking the Death God's soul attacks. Then, as if nothing had happened, he continued to attack the Nether Child. Bang! With a flick of his tail, a Death God exploded. Next, the Overlord Crocodile opened its mouth and spat out a beam of light, destroying a Death God. In the end, the Underworld Child was no match for his opponent. After exchanging over 10 moves, he was completely suppressed. His 12 clones were being defeated one after another. Soon after, of the 12 Death Gods, only one was left. It was grabbed by the great crocodile's 2 claws and directly ripped apart. Underworld Child's true body appeared, and he frantically retreated while coughing out large mouthfuls of blood. Underworld Child was defeated, similarly not a match. He can't even withstand a single blow. It looks like the strongest in the Divine Wilderness is only at this level. The giant crocodile's eyes swept over Lu Ming and the others. Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing's expressions didn't change, but the rest of the people didn't look too good. Even Underworld Child had been defeated. The remaining ones, such as Monk Wuliang and Yang Padian, were not confident at all. Their combat strength might not be comparable to Underworld Child's. Looks like the Divine Wilderness continent is bound to lose. There aren't any outstanding geniuses. That's right. I wonder what the rank of the person who did it is in the Divine Crocodile continent? Peak LV4 Spirit God. I think his ranking in the godly crocodile continent wouldn't be low. The godly crocodile continent isn't stupid. Of course, they will send out experts. The surrounding people were discussing. Who's going to attack next? The giant crocodile continued to speak. It seemed like it really wanted to fight them one by one. Heartless Monk, Yang Patian, and the others' expressions changed, but they didn't say anything. Humph, what a bunch of trash. How about this, all of you come at me together, and I'll take care of all of you together. I'll let all of you roll off the general's peak willingly. The Emperor Crocodile opened its mouth, extremely arrogant. It actually wanted the people of the divine desolate continent to attack together. Damn it! Ta Ba Shi gritted his teeth and a murderous glint appeared in his eyes. If it weren't for the fact that he knew he couldn't win, he would have charged forward. What's with that look? Are you not convinced? Then I'll start with you. The Emperor Crocodile glanced at Ta Ba Shi and a cold glint flashed across its eyes. A tail covered with scales whipped towards Ta Ba Shi. Chi, as the tail whipped past, the space shattered like paper. The tail carried a terrifying spatial storm as it whipped towards Ta Ba Shi. Ta Ba Shi's expression changed drastically. His cultivation was only at the peak LV3 spirit god realm, which was one level lower than his opponent. He was no match for his opponent at all. He gritted his teeth and was about to use his full strength to resist the attack when a voice sounded. Let me do it. Bang! Lu Ming stepped forward and appeared in front of Ta Ba Shi. The dragon force in his body roared and his true yuan boiled. Lu Ming stretched out his hand and grabbed the Emperor Crocodile's tail. How dare you grab my tail with your bare hands? Break your arms. The Emperor Crocodile's eyes revealed a trace of malevolence. However, in the next moment, its eyes flashed with astonishment. Its tail whipped heavily on Lu Ming's palm. However, Lu Ming's palm did not move an inch and neither did his body. Instead, its tail was grabbed by Lu Ming. Ha! Lu Ming exhaled and grabbed the Emperor Crocodile's tail with both hands. It was as if he was swinging a big hammer. He swung the Emperor Crocodile's huge body up and smashed it heavily towards the mountain peak. Bang! The Emperor Crocodile's huge body smashed heavily on General Peak, causing the entire mountain to shake violently. Countless inscriptions appeared on the surface of General Peak and neutralized the terrifying force. If it was not for the protection of the inscription array, the entire General Peak would have exploded and not a single stone would be left. The remaining people from the divine crocodile continent were stunned. The onlookers in the distance were also stunned. They had never expected that there would be a fierce person in the divine wilderness continent who could swing the Emperor Crocodile's huge body like a big hammer. It's not over yet. It's coming again. Someone shouted. Sure enough, Lu Ming was not done yet. He swung the Emperor Crocodile's body and smashed it down again. Kid, let go of me. The Emperor Crocodile roared and struggled violently. However, it was useless. At that moment, Lu Ming had unleashed 8 dragons. His divine strength was invincible and the Emperor Crocodile could not struggle at all. Boom! The Emperor Crocodile's huge body smashed down again, causing the mountain to shake non-stop. Boom! 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 Following that, loud explosions could be heard from the mountain peak. The Emperor Crocodile was repeatedly smashed on the mountain peak and let out a blood-curdling scream. The sky prides of the divine wilderness continent such as the Underworld Child and Yang Patian gasped. Especially Lion Do, who broke out in cold sweat. Lu Ming was getting stronger and stronger. How violent! They silently mourned for the Emperor Crocodile. However, they felt extremely comfortable in their hearts. Wasn't the Emperor Crocodile arrogant? Now, it's going to be a dead dog. Boom! After being smashed more than 10 times, the Emperor Crocodile could no longer maintain its bloodline fusion state and reverted back to its human form. Lu Ming kicked the Emperor Crocodile's face and sent it flying far away. A young man from the Divine Crocodile continent flew out and caught the Emperor Crocodile. Otherwise, no one knew where the Emperor Crocodile would have flown to. I didn't expect the Divine Wilderness continent to have such an expert. I really didn't expect it. Interesting. It's the Divine Crocodile continent's turn to have a headache. Some people were discussing in the distance. To them, no matter which side won, it had nothing to do with them. They were just there to watch the show. Humph. That kid does have some strength. However, the real experts of the Divine Crocodile continent have not appeared yet. Mu Feng snorted and said. Lu Ming's combat strength was within his expectations. Since Lu Ming could easily defeat him, it was normal for him to defeat a peak level 4 spirit god from the Divine Crocodile continent. Chapter 1200. As far as I know, there are at least 2 or 3 level 5 spiritual gods in the Divine Crocodile continent. Mu Feng explained with a smirk. There are at least 2 or 3 level 5 spiritual gods. Someone sucked in a cold breath. That's right. This is just the beginning. Mu Feng sneered as the sharpness in his eyes intensified. A level 5 spiritual god was much stronger than a level 4 spiritual god. At that moment, the elites of the Divine Crocodile continent had ugly looks on their faces. Among them, a burly young man in golden armor stepped out. His eyes were golden as he stared at Lu Ming, releasing a powerful aura. I didn't expect that there would be a decent expert in the divine region. Not bad. The young man in golden armor said coldly. If you want to fight, then do it. Cut the crap. Lu Ming said flatly. Ha ha ha, you're arrogant, but... The young man in golden armor started to laugh, but his eyes were cold. His eyes swept past Lu Ming and landed on a courtyard in the forest. Pretending to be calm in front of the elites of the Divine Crocodile continent makes me uncomfortable. So, I'll take care of this guy first, then I'll take care of you. Having said that, the young man in golden armor stretched out his hand and grabbed at the air. A giant golden claw formed above the courtyard and grabbed at it. He's attacking Long Chen. Lu Ming raised his eyebrows and smirked. He had already noticed that Long Chen was living in the courtyard. From the very beginning, Long Chen had not appeared. He had only been cultivating in that courtyard. Obviously, the young man in golden armor had also noticed that Long Chen was cultivating in the courtyard. He was unhappy and wanted to take down Long Chen before dealing with Lu Ming. Looks like I don't have to do anything. Lu Ming muttered as he retreated to Xian Yanqing's side. He was happy to be free. Get lost. When the giant golden claw was about to grab Long Chen, a cold shout came from the courtyard. A fist radiance flew out and smashed the giant golden claw. Swoosh. A figure stepped out from the courtyard and appeared in the air. It was Long Chen. Were you the one who attacked? Long Chen stared at the golden-armored youth. Not bad, I didn't expect your cultivation base to be, whoosh. Before the golden-armored young man could finish his sentence, Long Chen's figure had already approached the golden-armored young man at an extremely fast speed. Long Chen threw a punch at him. The pressure of this punch caused the golden-armored young man's expression to change drastically. He hurriedly punched out as well. When the two fists collided, the golden-armored young man's face immediately turned the color of pig liver. With a loud bang, his body was sent flying backward. His arm was trembling non-stop, and he nearly spat out a mouthful of blood. How dare you sneak attack me? Despicable! The young man in golden armor roared, and a giant crocodile appeared above his head. Unlike the previous person, this giant crocodile was golden, as if it was made of gold. Both of them possessed a 9th-rank divine bloodline. The golden-armored man unleashed bloodline fusion, and his aura surged violently. This person's cultivation was at the mid-5th level of the spirit god realm, and he was slightly stronger than the scaled young man from before. The golden-armored youth transformed into a giant crocodile and charged towards Long Chen. Boom! Long Chen's aura skyrocketed, and his arms became thicker. They were twice as thick as before. That's dragon scales? Lu Ming's eyes flickered. He saw scales that looked like dragon scales on Long Chen's thick arms. Could it be that Long Chen's bloodline is a type of true dragon? Lu Ming guessed. Boom! Boom! Long Chen continuously punched out with both hands. The first punch sent the golden-armored young man's tail flying. The second punch landed on the giant crocodile's head. With a loud bang, the giant crocodile's body was sent flying backward. Whoosh! Long Chen took a step forward and closed in on the giant crocodile. He raised his huge fists and continuously punched down. The fist energy broke through everything, and the giant crocodile couldn't resist. The golden-armored young man let out a miserable cry. Damn, another monster has appeared in the divine wilderness continent. He's so strong that even a 5th-level spirit god realm expert isn't his match. It seems like this person is the strongest person in the divine wilderness continent. Long Chen's battle strength made the onlookers tremble. Humph. Mu Feng's face was cold as he snorted. However, there was shock in his eyes. Long Chen was someone that he had to deal with. However, Long Chen's battle strength had exceeded his expectations. Bam! Bam! After a few punches, the golden-armored young man wailed in pain. Stop! A young man from the divine crocodile continent shouted as a powerful aura erupted from his body. Nonsense, if you want to fight, then fight together. Don't disturb my cultivation. Long Chen scolded. Damn it, he's too arrogant. He's too arrogant. I suggest that we fight together to suppress this person. That's right, let's fight together. Long Chen's disdainful attitude made the young men from the divine crocodile continent roar in anger. They were all peerless geniuses and stood at the peak of the divine crocodile continent. Even the sovereigns didn't dare to look down on them. When had they ever been looked down upon? All of them roared and wanted to fight together. Boom! Boom! At least 7 or 8 young men from the divine crocodile continent had bloodlines above their heads. All of them had level 9 divine grade bloodlines and were giant crocodiles. Most of the people from the divine crocodile continent had inherited the bloodlines of the ancient divine crocodile, overlord crocodile and giant crocodile. A total of 7 young men had merged their bloodlines and turned into giant crocodiles. 2 of them had powerful auras. One is a late level 5 spiritual god and the other is a peak level 5 spiritual god. Lu Ming's eyes flickered as he saw the cultivation of the young men from the divine crocodile continent. Other than them, the rest were level 4 spiritual gods. As for those with lower cultivation, they didn't fight. The 7 experts turned into giant crocodiles and pounced towards Long Chen. This time, they should be able to force Long Chen to show his strength. The other young men from the divine region, including Lu Ming, were curious as they wanted to see Long Chen's true strength. Long Chen's eyes revealed a rare trace of fighting spirit. Roar! An earth-shattering roar resounded as a giant creature appeared above Long Chen's head. It was a giant elephant that was even bigger than a mountain. However, this giant elephant was different from an ordinary elephant as it was covered with scales like a dragon's armor. There were also 9 golden chakras around the giant elephant. However, the aura emitted by the giant elephant was much stronger than the aura emitted by other level 9 god-level bloodlines. This is the immemorial dragonesque elephant. Someone has awakened the bloodline of the immemorial dragonesque elephant? A surprised voice rang in Lu Ming's ears. It was Dandan. Dandan seemed to have sensed the aura of Long Chen's bloodline as he appeared from the mountain river diagram. Immemorial dragonesque elephant? Is it a hybrid of a true dragon and a divine elephant? Lu Ming was stunned. No, the immemorial dragonesque elephant is a separate race that has nothing to do with the true dragon. It is even stronger than the true dragon because it is as famous as the 9 dragons. It is one of the top 10 battle beasts with me. Dandan explained. The immemorial dragonesque elephant is one of the top 10 battle beasts. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Chapter 1201. The strength of the bloodlines of the top 10 beasts could be seen from the 9 dragons' bloodline. The 9 dragons' bloodline was only a level 8 divine grade bloodline, but it contained 8 dragon forces. Coupled with the devouring power, its combat strength was already shocking. Moreover, the 9 dragons' bloodline's strongest point was its devouring power. It could refine all kinds of energy, even wills, to quickly increase one's cultivation and upgrade one's bloodline. The 9 dragons' bloodline played an important role in Lu Ming's current achievements. One could imagine how terrifying the primordial dragonesque elephant bloodline, which was on par with the 9 dragons' bloodline, was. The immemorial dragonesque elephant is famous for its combat strength among the top 10 beasts. It's so powerful that it can penetrate the world and suppress everything. It's amazing that this guy could awaken the immemorial dragonesque elephant bloodline. Dandan exclaimed. Roar! The dragonesque elephant roared and its aura spread out, causing the divine crocodile continent's skyprides to turn pale. Boom! Long Chen transformed into a dragonesque elephant and stepped out, stomping heavily on the golden-armored youth's giant crocodile body. The golden giant crocodile exploded and the golden-armored youth's figure appeared. He was bleeding profusely and blood gushed out of his mouth as he fell to the ground. Apparently, Long Chen had shown mercy and did not kill him. However, he was still severely injured. Roar! Then, the immemorial dragonesque elephant roared and swept its trunk. 3 level 4 spirit god Skypride's bloodlines collapsed and their bodies were sent flying as they screamed in pain. Let's work together. The strongest person in the divine crocodile continent was a level 5 spirit god. He shouted and whipped his tail at the immemorial dragonesque elephant. Bang! Bang! The immemorial dragonesque elephant was actually very agile. It took 2 steps forward, and a terrifying energy burst out, blocking the opponent. At the same time, its 2 tusks glowed, and 2 rays of light shot out like 2 heavenly blades, flying out. A few more heaven's favorites had their blood and bodies destroyed, and they were sent flying away while screaming in pain. Only 2 level 5 spirit god Skyprides from the divine crocodile continent were left in the sky. The immemorial dragonesque elephant stepped out, causing the sky to shake. Although the 2 Skyprides from the divine crocodile continent tried their best, they could not withstand it and were completely crushed. In just a few moves, the 2 of them screamed in pain. Their bloodline power dissipated and they reverted to their human forms, and blood gushed out of their mouths as they looked at the dragonesque elephant in the sky in fear. Whoosh! The Archean dragonesque elephant shrunk and Long Chen's body reappeared. He glanced at the geniuses of the godly crocodile continent and said coldly, "Get lost." The Skyprides of the divine crocodile continent had ugly expressions on their faces. However, they did not dare to stay any longer. They brought those injured people and retreated back to the Soldier's Peak. So powerful. Who is this person? He's so powerful that even a peerless genius at the 5th level of the spirit god realm couldn't withstand a single blow. He's indeed too strong. To think that a mere divine wilderness continent would have such a person. Such fighting strength can only be found in the top 10 continents. How shocking. We have another strong opponent in the heavenly god sect's selection of disciples this time. In the distance, the geniuses from the other continents and the godly ruins continent looked at Long Chen with solemn expressions. Damn it, how can this person be so strong? Mu Feng gritted his teeth and his face turned ugly. Initially, he wanted the people of the divine crocodile continent to torture the divine wilderness continent. Unexpectedly, the result was the complete opposite. Long Chen's expression was calm. He didn't say a word and directly returned to his courtyard to continue cultivating. What a weirdo. Lu Ming shook his head and smiled. How is it? Are you confident? Xie Nianqing blinked his big eyes and looked at Lu Ming. What he meant was Lu Ming confident in defeating Long Chen? The peak of the 5th level of the spirit god realm and the ancient dragonesque elephant bloodline is indeed abnormally strong. However, when have I ever lost in a battle of the same level? Lu Ming smiled confidently. He had a rough idea of Long Chen's strength. Shameless. Xie Nianqing curled his lips, but there was a smile on his face. The two chatted as they returned to their courtyard and continued cultivating. There were less than 3 months before the heavenly god sect selection. Everyone wanted to seize the time to cultivate and increase their strength. The stronger they were, the higher their chances of being selected. Time passed quickly and half a month had passed. Lu Ming cultivated diligently every day and made great progress. His various intents had improved by quite a bit. However, his earth intent was still at the peak of the 4th level for the time being and had yet to reach the 4th level of the greater mastery. On the other hand, Lu Ming had actually reached the 8th step of the 9 dragons' heaven-stomping steps. The 8th step was equivalent to the prowess of a superior-grade divine-level martial technique. Given Lu Ming's current cultivation level, he could not unleash its full prowess. However, once he executed it, its prowess would undoubtedly be stronger and Lu Ming's combat prowess would be enhanced. On this day, Lu Ming and Xie Nianqing went out together. It had been more than half a month since they came to the southern divine palace in the godly ruins continent. The two of them planned to walk around and experience the local customs of the godly ruins continent. Then, they would see if there were any treasures, spiritual herbs, or materials that they could buy. Especially the materials for the Nirvana pill. Some of them were already very difficult to find in the godly ruins continent. However, that might not be the case in the godly ruins continent. Perhaps, they could find some. The two of them flew out of the General's Peak and toward a bustling street. Brother Lu, Miss Xie, what a coincidence. A voice came from the side. Brother Yi. Lu Ming turned and saw that it was Yi Chuan. Are the two of you planning to go shopping? Yi Chuan asked. That's right. We've been here for more than half a month and we haven't gone shopping. Lu Ming said with a smile. Do the two of you have a place to go? Yi Chuan asked. No, we're just looking around to see if we can buy some materials and spiritual herbs. Lu Ming said. If it's ordinary spiritual herbs and materials, you can find them in the ordinary market. If it's some rare materials and spiritual herbs, it's hard to find them in the ordinary market. I know a place where you can find some very rare materials and spiritual herbs. Yi Chuan said. Oh? Where is it? Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Treasure Exchange Pavilion. Treasure Exchange Pavilion? Lu Ming was puzzled. As the name suggests, the Treasure Exchange Pavilion is a place where you can exchange for treasures. As long as you enter, you can take out treasures that you don't need and exchange them for treasures that you need. If someone needs them, they will naturally take them out to exchange. That way, you can get some rare treasures. Yi Chuan explained. There's such a place? Let's go take a look. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. I was going to the Treasure Exchange Pavilion anyway. Let me lead the way. Yi Chuan said straightforwardly. Yi Chuan led the way and the three of them landed on a street. They walked along the street and took a detour before arriving in front of a huge building. It was a pavilion that was incomparably spacious and occupied a large area. It had 7 floors and towered into the sky. It stood out among the other buildings. Chapter 1202. The Treasure Exchange Tower used to be a place for the older generation of experts to exchange for treasures. But recently, prodigies from all over the continent have gathered here. I heard that Ji Hongchen has reserved this place for the younger generation of prodigies to exchange for treasures. Yi Chuan explained. Ji Hongchen? Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing were slightly taken aback. Ji Hongchen is one of the 3 strongest prodigies in our southern god palace. She's a peerless beauty. Perhaps she's on the highest floor today. If there's a chance, we might be able to meet her. Yi Chuan's eyes lit up when he mentioned Ji Hongchen. Lu Ming smiled slightly, and the 3 of them walked towards the Treasure Exchange Tower. There were 7 floors in total, and one had to pay a fee to enter. The first floor was 1,000 ores per person, and the higher the floor, the higher the price. The 3 of them paid the fee and stepped into a door made of light. Yes, the door of the Treasure Exchange Tower was not an ordinary door. It was a portal, and entering it was a portal. After the 3 of them stepped into the portal, they appeared on the side of a large hall in the next moment. The hall was extremely spacious, and there were rows of tables and chairs around the hall. At this moment, there were many people sitting at the tables and chairs. There was a large empty space between the tables and chairs, and a young man was standing there with a treasure in his hand. A piece of Suishing iron. It's a top-level 7 refining material. I'll exchange it for 3 wind god pills. Whoever has 3 wind god pills can have this piece of Suishing iron. The young man looked around, and his voice echoed throughout the hall. I happen to have 3 wind god pills. I'll exchange it with you. After a long while, a young lady stood up, took out a jade bottle and handed it over to the young man. The young man opened the jade bottle and looked inside. His face lit up with joy as he said, "It's really the wind god pellet. Many thanks, this piece of star iron is yours." The young man handed the Suishing iron to the young woman, and the 2 of them sat down happily. The first floor is filled with people with low cultivation. It's rare to see high-quality items here. Let's go up. Yi Chuan said. Lu Ming nodded. He scanned with his spiritual sense and found that most of the young men on this floor were below the spiritual god realm. The 3 of them walked towards another door of light. The passageway between each floor required a teleportation gate. There were also people guarding the portal. The 3 of them handed over the ores and stepped into the portal. The layout of the second floor was exactly the same as that of the first floor. The only difference was that there were fewer people on the second floor, but their cultivation was higher than that of the first floor. In the first few floors, the 3 of them did not stop. Soon, they arrived at the 5th floor. Brother Yi, do you still want to continue upwards? I'll see if there's anything I need on this floor. Yi Chuan said. Brother Yi, please go ahead. We'll go up and take a look. Lu Ming said. The materials needed to concoct the Nirvana pill were all extremely rare. The higher the level, the higher the cultivation of the geniuses, the more likely it was to appear. Lu Ming planned to continue upwards. Alright, then I wish the 2 of you good luck in exchanging for what you need. Yi Chuan cupped his fists and walked towards the hall. He sat down on a chair. Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing continued to walk towards another door of light and arrived at the 6th floor. There were fewer people on the 6th floor. At a glance, there were only about 50 people. Each of them was a young man with a strong aura. They had the potential to be dragons and phoenixes. Obviously, they were all geniuses from different continents. After arriving at this floor, Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing did not continue upwards. Instead, they walked towards the tables and chairs at the side of the hall. At this moment, Lu Ming noticed a few cold gazes sweeping towards them. So, they're from the almighty crocodile continent. Lu Ming's lips curled up slightly. He ignored the gazes of the geniuses from the almighty crocodile continent and sat down at a table. At this moment, a young man was holding a treasure in the middle of the hall. He wanted to exchange for the treasure that he needed with someone else. However, the young man asked a few times, but no one answered him. Obviously, no one had the treasure that he needed. In the end, the young man sighed and left helplessly. After the young man left, another young man stepped forward. A milky white horn appeared in his hand. This is the horn of the Holy Light Tiger. It's a level 8 material. It can be exchanged for a lower divine martial arts movement technique. Anyone who has it can have it. The young man introduced. The treasures on the 6th floor are indeed of a higher level than the ones on the lower floors. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. However, the horn of the Holy Light Tiger was not something that he and Xian Yanqing needed. Naturally, they did not say anything. I'll exchange a movement technique with you. A young man stood up and took out a secret manual. The two of them exchanged happily. Next, the young men and women stepped forward one by one. They took out their treasures and said what they needed. Of course, not everyone could exchange for the treasures that they needed. Some people would settle for the next best thing. If someone could offer a good price, they would sell it to get some origin stones. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing looked around for half an hour. Unfortunately, they did not find the treasures that they needed. It seems that we have to go to the 7th floor to take a look. Lu Ming smiled bitterly at Xian Yanqing. I have a piece of sky thunder wood. I'll exchange it for a purple smoke fruit. At this moment, a voice sounded, shocking Lu Ming. Sky thunder wood. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. The sky thunder wood actually had powerful lightning energy. It was very effective in comprehending the concept of lightning. Lu Ming had comprehended the concept of lightning. If he used the sky thunder wood to comprehend the concept of lightning, he could save a lot of time. However, Lu Ming did not have a purple smoke fruit. Lu Ming frowned slightly. Fortunately, some of the people present were also tempted. However, no one said anything. Obviously, there were no purple smoke fruits. No purple smoke fruits? The young man who took out the sky thunder wood asked with a disappointed expression. Brother, can I buy it with origin stones? Someone asked. The young man who took out the sky thunder wood pondered for a while and said, since there are no purple smoke fruits, let's buy it with origin stones. You guys bid, and the highest bidder will get it. I bid 500,000 origin stones. Immediately, someone made a bid. I bid 600,000. I bid 650,000. Soon, the price rose steadily and was called to 800,000 origin stones. The concept of lightning was one of the 9 common concepts. Naturally, there were many people who comprehended it. Therefore, Lu Ming was not in a hurry to bid. Soon, the price rose to 1 million origin stones. I bid 2 million origin stones. At this moment, a voice sounded and doubled the price. It's him, the genius of the divine crocodile continent. Lu Ming's eyes moved. He recognized the young man who suddenly increased the price. This person was the strongest person on the divine crocodile continent. He was at the peak of the 5th level spirit god realm. Half a month ago, he was easily defeated by Long Chen. At this moment, he was staring at the sky thunder wood with a burning gaze. Chapter 1203. The sudden increase of 1 million showed that the divine crocodile continent's prodigy was determined to get it. Many people chose to give in. However, there were still people who continued to bid. "I'll bid 2,100,000. 2,200,000. There were still 2 people who bid, raising the price to 2,200,000. 3 million. The divine crocodile continent's prodigy opened his mouth again. He was determined to get it and raised the price to 3 million. "Yi Kuang, since you want this sky thunderwood so much, I'll give it to you." A young man who originally bid said and withdrew from the competition. Yi Kuang was the name of the strongest prodigy in the divine crocodile continent. "Forget it. 3 million isn't worth it. I'll keep it and buy something else." Another young man shook his head and gave up the competition. Yi Kuang's face showed a smile. His thunder essence had reached a bottleneck. This sky thunderwood might help him break through the bottleneck. Now that no one competed with him, he was naturally overjoyed. In this case, I'll buy this sky thunderwood," Yi Kuang laughed. "Wait a minute, I'll bid 3,500,000. At this moment, a voice sounded, causing Yi Kuang to stop mid-sentence. Then, his eyes flashed sharply as he looked at the person who spoke. "It's you from the divine wilderness continent." Seeing the person who spoke, the sharpness in Yi Kuang's eyes intensified. The one who bid was naturally Lu Ming. "I'll bid 3,500,000. Do you want it or not? If you don't want it, the sky thunder wood is mine." Lu Ming glanced at Yi Kuang and said lightly, "I'll bid 4 million. Yi Kuang gritted his teeth. 5 million. Lu Ming directly increased the price by 1 million. Right now, Lu Ming's primordial stones were piled up like a mountain in his storage ring. He had plenty of primordial stones. He would not even bat an eyelid at the addition of 1 million primordial stones. Yi Kuang's face was completely gloomy. 5 million ores had already exceeded his budget. "Kid, you're determined to go against me, aren't you?" Yi Kuang stared at Lu Ming with unkind eyes. What a joke. Naturally, everyone wants treasures. You're not the only one who can use the heavenly lightning wood. I can use it too, so I naturally want it too. What does it have to do with you? If you want it, then add the raw stones. If you don't have any raw stones, then shut up. Lu Ming said calmly. "Brat, don't think that just because Long Chen has appeared in the divine wilderness continent, you trash can do whatever you want. Let me tell you, if Long Chen isn't here, I can suppress you with a flip of my hand." Yi Kuang yelled angrily and completely turned hostile. During this time, Long Chen's name had also spread, so Yi Kuang knew about it. "Idiot." Lu Ming pursed his lips. "Everyone, there's no rule against fighting in the treasure exchange pavilion, right?" Yi Kuang's voice sounded, asking others. "No, there is indeed no rule against fighting in the treasure conversion pavilion." Someone spoke with the mentality of watching a good show. "Well, this person deliberately provoked me and raised the price with me. I can only teach him a lesson and let him know that everyone's actions and words have to be linked to his strength. Without strength, some actions can't be done and some words can't be said." Yi Kuang got up, stepped out, and closed in on Lu Ming. His eyes were cold. It seems that Yi Kuang is furious. That brat is most likely going to be abused. Someone sneered. Indeed, Long Chen of the divine wilderness continent is indeed powerful, but other than Long Chen, the rest are trash. Yet, they want to use Long Chen's name to do whatever they want. It's normal for them to be abused. Such a person will be killed sooner or later. There was a burst of discussion all around. These discussions were all heard by Lu Ming. Lu Ming was speechless. When did he use Long Chen's name to do whatever he wanted? Could it be that when he wanted to buy something at a high price, it became borrowing Long Chen's name? These people were too imaginative. In fact, it was no wonder. In the past, the Divine Wilderness continent wasn't considered strong among the continents. This time, there was an existence like Long Chen with amazing combat strength. In the eyes of others, Long Chen was a special case. The rest of the Divine Wilderness continent were still trash. Now that a trash was so arrogant, they naturally thought that Lu Ming was borrowing Long Chen's name to do whatever he wanted. "Humph, brat, get out of here now. Give up bidding with me and I will let you go," Yi Kuang said. After all, he was still a little afraid of Long Chen. They lived in Soldier Peak and General Peak, which were next to each other. If Long Chen found trouble with him later, he was also afraid. Lu Ming shook his head and said, "Little Qing, such trash also came to participate in the Celestial Divine Sect selection. Why do I feel that our chances of winning have greatly increased?" "I think so too. Hey, look, this person's face has become darker than a pig's liver." Xie Nianqing squinted his eyes and muttered along with Lu Ming. The two of them talked back and forth, directly making Yi Kuang's face turn into a pig's liver color. "Courting death, I will cripple you," Yi Kuang roared. Sharp nails emerged from his claws, and his palms were covered with scales like a crocodile's claws. Moreover, there were traces of lightning on them. Swish! Yi Kuang's claw grabbed at Lu Ming's throat. It was as fast as lightning, unbelievably fast. This claw was terrifyingly powerful. Even an ordinary 7th-level spirit god martial artist would be killed by this claw. Boom! Boom! The 8 dragon forces in Lu Ming's body erupted. His arm muscles bulged, and he blasted out a punch. Boom! A muffled sound of impact rang out. Kacha! Kacha! Immediately, there was a sound of bones breaking. Yi Kuang snorted. His face changed drastically, and his body retreated wildly. In the main hall, dense inscriptions emerged on the ground, removing Yi Kuang's power. This person is so powerful. On the side, the others were shocked and a little aghast. At this moment, Yi Kuang's claws were completely deformed and twisted together. Obviously, Yi Kuang's 5 fingers were broken by Lu Ming's punch. Not only did this punch block Yi Kuang's attack, but it also broke Yi Kuang's fingers. This kind of power was amazing. "You're courting death." Yi Kuang was furious. With a roar, the aura of a 5th-level spirit god erupted. At the same time, his bloodline emerged on top of his head. He transformed into a giant crocodile flashing with lightning. However, because he was in the treasure redemption house, his giant crocodile had become much smaller, unlike the mountain-like ones outside. Here, the giant crocodile's body had shrunk to 10 meters long, but its power had not weakened at all. It was still terrifying. Yi Kuang roared and pounced at Lu Ming. "Today, I will teach you a lesson." Lu Ming got up, and the 3rd bloodline emerged. His hair turned blood-red. Endless murderous intent shrouded Yi Kuang. Whoosh! Chapter 1204. The sword light was like blood, filled with cold murderous intent as it cut through the void. Puchi! In front of everyone's shocked eyes, the giant crocodile transformed by Yi Kuang was directly split into 2 halves. The giant crocodile's huge body dissipated into energy light. In the light, a figure retreated quickly with blood splattering in the air. It was Yi Kuang. At this time, his face was pale with horror. One of his arms was missing. He controlled his body to stop the bleeding and looked at Lu Ming in shock. At the scene, the other young Skyprides also showed shock and disbelief. One sword. With just one sword, Lu Ming broke through Yi Kuang's bloodline fusion and severed one of Yi Kuang's arms. Such combat power was really amazing. The Divine Wilderness continent was too frightening. First, there was Long Chen. Now, this young man gave off an even more unfathomable feeling. Originally, they thought that the divine wilderness continent only produced a powerful sky pride like Longchen occasionally. The others were still trash, but now they realized that they were wrong. Originally, there was no need for Lu Ming to take action. Longchen alone was enough to deal with all the people of the divine crocodile continent. To borrow your own words, everyone has to pay the price for their words. Consider this an arm as a lesson for you. Now scram. Lu Ming withdrew his third bloodline, and the aura on his body became calm again. He looked at Yi Kuang and said indifferently. Yi Kuang's face turned ugly, but he didn't dare to say a word. He turned around and disappeared from the teleportation array. Brother, here are 5 million raw stones to buy your Sky Thunder wood. Lu Ming took out a storage ring and walked to the young man who sold the Sky Thunder wood. Okay. Take the Sky Thunder wood. The young man was shocked and quickly handed the Sky Thunder wood to Lu Ming and kept Lu Ming's storage ring. Feeling the powerful thunder and lightning power in the Sky Thunder wood, Lu Ming smiled and returned to his seat. Little Qing, see if there's anything you need. Buy it together. Lu Ming said to Xian Yinqing. Yes, but I need items that contain demonic aura. They might be rare. Xian Yinqing said. The treasure exchange continued. However, they didn't see anything that Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing needed. After a period of time, Lu Ming walked to the center of the hall, cupped his fists and said, Everyone, this one is Lu Ming. I need 9-leaf Ganoderma, Emperor's Essence, Emperor's Blood Stone. If anyone has any of these treasures, feel free to name your price. Lu Ming will definitely find a way to achieve it. Lu Ming listed 5 materials in a row, all of which were the main materials for refining the Nirvana pill. The Nirvana pill required a total of 7 main ingredients. Now, he had already collected 2 of them, and he was still short of 5. These 5 are all extremely rare spiritual herbs and treasures. I don't have them on me. Indeed, neither do I. The surrounding young men shook their heads, indicating that they did not. After a while, seeing that everyone was shaking their heads, Lu Ming was somewhat disappointed and returned to his seat. Xiao Qing, shall we go to the top floor to take a look? Lu Ming said. Xian Yinqing nodded and left with Lu Ming, walking towards the portal. This was the 6th floor, and there was another floor above it, which was the 7th floor. After stepping through the portal, the 2 of them appeared on the 7th floor. There were even fewer people on the 7th floor. There were only about 20 of them, sitting around. When Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing made their moves, pairs of eyes immediately looked towards them. However, most of them glanced at Lu Ming and ignored him. Most of them stopped at Xian Yinqing. What a beautiful girl. I wonder which continent she's from. Her appearance is not inferior to Ji Hongchen's. Low murmurs could be heard. It's them, Lu Ming. In the crowd, there was a person with a cold gaze. It was Mu Feng. He was also here. Mu Feng, do you know them? Beside Mu Feng, there was a very handsome young man. He wore a jade crown on his head and a golden robe, looking like a noble young master. At this moment, he looked at Xian Yinqing with a burning gaze. I know them. They are the geniuses of the divine wilderness continent. The man is Lu Ming and the woman is Xian Yinqing. Mu Feng said. Divine wilderness continent? I heard that Long Chen's combat strength is not bad. What about these 2? What do you think? The noble young master said. Lu Ming's combat strength is slightly stronger than mine. The woman should be average. Mu Feng said, deliberately saying that Lu Ming's combat strength was only slightly stronger than his. That woman is not bad. I didn't expect there to be such a beauty in the divine wilderness continent. The noble young master stared at Xian Yinqing, his gaze burning even more. If cousin wants her, why don't you accept her? Mu Feng suggested. That's good too. After the treasure auction is over, I'll send someone to bring this girl to my residence. The noble young master said. His words were filled with strong confidence, as if he had made such a decision. The two of them spoke through voice transmission, so Lu Ming could not hear them. However, Lu Ming could still feel their gazes. Mu Feng. Lu Ming's eyes turned cold as he walked towards a table with Xian Yanqing. At the same time, Lu Ming's gaze swept across the entire hall. There were only 20 or so people on the 7th floor, but all of them were full of essence qi. Their bodies faintly emitted an astonishing aura. Clearly, they were all geniuses among geniuses. Among them, there were a few whose auras made Lu Ming frown, feeling a sense of danger. What caught Lu Ming's attention the most was a woman sitting at the head of the table. She was wearing a fiery red dress, like a blooming flower. She was incomparably beautiful, but there was also a heroic spirit exuding from her. It was a very strange temperament, but on her body, it did not seem abrupt. Instead, it was very harmonious, forming a different kind of beauty. She was indeed beautiful, not inferior to the 5 great beauties of the central continent. What's wrong? You can't take your eyes off a beauty. Are you tempted? Xian Yanqing's voice sounded in Lu Ming's ears. What's wrong? Are you jealous? Lu Ming looked at Xian Yanqing teasingly. I'm not. Xian Yanqing pouted. How can she be as beautiful as you? How could I be tempted? Lu Ming said softly, causing Xian Yanqing's face to turn slightly red, and she gave Lu Ming an expression that said, at least you know what's good for you. The two of them sat to the side. At this moment, a young man took out a treasure and wanted to exchange it with the crowd. As expected of the 7th floor, the treasure that was taken out was different. It was a piece of golden mother iron, which was extremely rare. It was an excellent material for refining spirit weapons, and even Lu Ming was tempted. Unfortunately, he did not have what the other party needed. Very quickly, the young man sighed and put it away. Then, his palm lit up and another piece of yellow stone appeared. This is the ancient mine of the ruins of God? Someone asked. That's right, it's the ancient mine of the ruins of God. The young man replied. Everyone knows that the ancient mine of the ruins of God might contain peerless treasures. Right now, I have 3 pieces in my hands. They were all obtained from the ruins of God. Now, I will sell these 3 pieces. The highest bidder will get them. Chapter 1205. The Ancient Mine of the Ruins of God? Lu Ming's expression changed, and he was a little curious. Previously, they had taken the cross-sea flying ship to the continent of God for a month, so they more or less had some understanding of the continent of God. The reason why the continent of God was called the continent of God was because there were several ruins of God on the continent of God. It was very dangerous inside, but it was also filled with endless treasures and mysteries, so it was called the ruins of God. Legend had it that the ruins of God originally did not exist. Countless years ago, the sky split open and countless things fell from the sky, forming the ruins of God. From the ruins of God, one could excavate a type of ore called the ancient mine of the ruins of God. The ore might contain supreme treasures. Some people had cut out supreme divine weapons, some had cut out supreme secret manuals, and some had cut out the bones, blood, essence, and so on of supreme experts. They were all supreme treasures. Of course, it was more likely that there was nothing inside. For a moment, no one made a sound. Buying the ancient mine of the ruins of God was like gambling. If one bought it, they might not get anything. The chances of getting treasures from the ancient mine of the ruins of God were too small. Beside Mu Feng, there seemed to be flames dancing in the eyes of the noble young master. His eyes were fixed on one of the ancient mines of the ruins of God as if he had sensed something. Lu Ming, I suggest you buy it because there's something good in one of the ancient mines. It might be of some help to you. At this moment, Danden's voice sounded. After this guy entered the treasure exchange tower, he had been lying on Lu Ming's shoulder without making a sound. Now, he suddenly sent a voice transmission to Lu Ming. You can sense the things in the ancient mine of the ruins of God? Lu Ming was stunned. It was said that the layer of yellow ore outside the ancient mine of the ruins of God was very strange. It could block the scanning of spiritual senses. If one did not cut open the ancient mine, one would not know in advance whether there was anything in the ancient mine, let alone what it was. Only in very rare cases would one be able to sense something. For example, the noble young master's bloodline was faintly beating. He felt that there was something in the ancient mine that was extremely compatible with his bloodline. That was why there was a slight reaction. This ancient mine is mine. The young master's eyes lit up as he said, I'll bet 100,000 origin stones on my luck. 100,000 primordial stones was not considered high, but it was not low either. If the 3 ancient mines were empty, the 100,000 primordial stones would have been wasted. Mu Ju, you're rich and overbearing. 100,000 raw stones is just a drop in the ocean for you. I'm not as rich as you, so I won't bet with you. Me too. At the side, the other youths laughed. There were many ancient mines of the godly ruins in other places of the southern divine palace. If they wanted to buy them, they could buy them at any time. Therefore, the others all shook their heads and did not bid. This made the corner of Mu Ju's mouth curl into a smile. If he could buy a primordial stone that contained a treasure with 100,000 primordial stones, then it would be a huge profit. His heart trembled. I bid 200,000 ores. This is the first time I've seen an ancient mine in the ruins of God. It's interesting. I'll try my luck too. Lu Ming said calmly. Lu Ming's words made Mu Ju's eyes turn cold. 300,000. Mu Ju said. Then I'll bid 500,000. Lu Ming said. This made Mu Ju's face turn even uglier. He looked at Lu Ming and said, Kid, you're new here, so you probably don't know the market price of the ancient mines of the godly ruins. Let me tell you, it's rumored that there are peerless treasures in the ancient mines of the godly ruins. However, the chances of that are very small. 99% of the ancient mines are empty. If you buy it, you might lose out. You don't have to worry about that. Also, don't you want to buy it too? Lu Ming smiled faintly. Humph. Mu Ju snorted and continued to bid, 600,000. At this time, the other's eyes flickered. Looking at Mu Ju's expression, he seemed to want it very much. Could it be that he sensed something? I feel like I'm in luck today. I'll buy it too. I'll bid 700,000. Is that so? I feel the same way. I'll bid 800,000. I'll bid 900,000. The other youths also bid. For sky prides like them, 100,000 primordial stones was nothing. If there were really treasures in the ancient mines of the godly ruins, then they would make a fortune. Soon, the price rose to 1,500,000 primordial stones. This made Mu Ju's face turn even uglier. All of this was because of Lu Ming. If it wasn't for Lu Ming competing with him, he might be able to buy the 3 ancient mines of the godly ruins with just 100,000 primordial stones. Now, he couldn't even buy it with 2 million. Although Mu Ju didn't really care about 1 or 2 million primordial stones, he was very unhappy to have spent so many primordial stones. 2 million primordial stones. Mu Ju gritted his teeth and called out a price. This guy called out such a high price. Could it be that he really sensed something? The other's eyes flickered and continued to bid. Soon, the price rose to 3 million. Lu Ming, forget it. Although there are things in there, the value is at most 3 million. Any higher and you'll lose money. Dandan said. Lu Ming was very surprised. It seemed that Dandan could really sense the specific things inside. Otherwise, how could he even measure the price? At this point, Lu Ming stopped bidding. On the other hand, Mu Ju and the other young men were still bidding. In the end, the price rose to 5 million primordial stones and was bought by Mu Ju. Damn it! Mu Ju looked coldly at Lu Ming, killing intent flashed in his eyes. On the side, Mu Feng was ecstatic. This Lu Ming is really courting death. How dare he offend Mu Ju? It seems that I don't need to find someone to deal with him. Mu Feng sneered in his heart. After that young man sold the ancient mines of the godly ruins, he went down. Then, another person went up and took out treasures to exchange. Some people succeeded in exchanging treasures, while others returned disappointed. After seeing the treasures taken out by several people, Xian Yanqing and Lu Ming didn't have what they wanted. The two shook their heads in disappointment. It seemed that it wasn't easy to find what they needed. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a fire spiritual root here. I need to exchange it for a sword-shaped stone. I don't know who has a sword-shaped stone, but one is enough. Suddenly, a voice sounded. What? Fire spiritual root. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat, and his eyes lit up. Fire spiritual root happened to be one of the main ingredients for refining nirvana pills. Finally, he found something he needed. Fire spiritual root, it's the fire spiritual root. Pang Yuan actually took out such a precious treasure. On the side, voices sounded. Fire spiritual root was a level 9 treasure. It was very rare in the world, and many people were tempted. But, a sword-shaped stone? Many people frowned. A sword-shaped stone was a treasure of the same level as the fire spiritual root. It was also rare in the world. Who would have it? It's the fire spiritual root. Mu Ju's eyes suddenly lit up, emitting a blazing light. It was incomparably hot and greedy. Chapter 1206. Pang Yuan, must you exchange it with a sword-shaped stone? I can use other treasures or raw stones to buy it from you. Name your price. Mu Ju stood up and stared at the fire spiritual root in Pang Yuan's hand. No, the fire spiritual root is useful to me, but I need a sword-shaped stone more. If you have one, I'll exchange it with you. If you don't, then forget it. Pang Yuan said. Pang Yuan, the fire spiritual root is useful to me. Can't we talk about it? Mu Ju did not give up and said with a fiery gaze. What does it have to do with me if it's useful to you? Pang Yuan sneered. Mu Ju's face darkened. However, Pang Yuan was a famous skypride in the South God Palace and had a powerful force behind him. Hence, Mu Ju was wary of Pang Yuan. If it was someone else, he would have taken action. Who has a sword-shaped stone? If you don't, then forget it. Pang Yuan said. I have one. Suddenly, a voice sounded. Everyone turned to look at the source of the voice. It's him. Many people were stunned. The one who spoke was Lu Ming. You have a sword-shaped stone? Pang Yuan's eyes lit up as he looked at Lu Ming. That's right. Lu Ming stood up and his palm glowed. A small stone sword appeared in Lu Ming's hand. The stone sword was the size of a palm. It was milky white and there was a faint sword chi being emitted from it. This was a sword-shaped stone. Lu Ming also felt lucky. This sword-shaped stone was found when Xiaofan killed the Tianwu sword sex expert and Lu Ming was sorting through the storage rings of the Tianwu sword sex expert. When Xiaofan killed so many experts, Lu Ming obtained a lot of good stuff and put them together. Now, it came in handy. It's really a sword-shaped stone. Pang Yuan's eyes lit up as he looked at the stone sword in Lu Ming's hand. The sword-shaped stone was very useful to a sword cultivator. This sword-shaped stone should be enough to repay your fire spiritual root. Lu Ming said. Of course. Pang Yuan said with a smile. Wait. At this moment, Mu Ju said coldly. He took a step forward and stopped in front of Lu Ming. He looked at Lu Ming and said, Kid, sell your sword-shaped stone to me. Sell it to you? I'm sorry, but my sword-shaped stone needs to be exchanged with Brother Pang for the fire spiritual root. I don't have any extra sword-shaped stones. Lu Ming said. If you don't have any extra, sell the one in your hand to me. Hurry up, I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Name your price. Mu Ju said impatiently. Lu Ming frowned and said, Don't you understand what I said? I said that I have a use for this stone. Nonsense, I don't care if you're useful or not. Sell him to me now, do you hear me? Mu Ju coldly scolded. Where did this idiot come from? Lu Ming sneered. Lu Ming was really speechless. This Mu Ju obviously wanted to use his sword-shaped stone to exchange for the fire spiritual root with Pang Yuan. He didn't dare to do anything to Pang Yuan. But he dared to bully him. At the side, the others looked on indifferently and didn't say anything. Kid, what did you say? Do you know who I am? I am Mu Ju, the young master of the Mu clan, one of the top 10 clans of the Southern Divine Palace. You dare. Get lost, I don't care who you are. It's none of my business who you are. A good dog doesn't block the way. Before Mu Ju could finish his words, he was coldly scolded by Lu Ming. He forcefully swallowed his words back. You're courting death. A mere trash from the divine wilderness continent dares to be so arrogant. If I don't teach you a lesson today, you won't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Mu Ju's face was completely gloomy. His eyes were cold and the aura on his body became violent. A layer of flame spread out from his body. At the side, the others looked on quietly and no one stopped him. In this world, treasures could only be obtained and protected if one had the strength to do so. Whoosh! Mu Ju waved his hand and a long whip condensed from flames lashed towards Lu Ming's face. You really think I'm a pushover? A cold light flashed in Lu Ming's eyes. His palm was like a knife as he slashed out. With a puff, the flame whip condensed by Mu Ju was cut into two. You have some ability, but you're still too inexperienced to be arrogant in front of me. Mu Ju said coldly. Boom! The aura on his body became even more violent. A terrifying pressure bloomed in the hall. The pressure was so strong that it surpassed the 5th level of the Spirit God realm. The 6th level of the Spirit God realm. Moreover, it was the peak of the 6th level of the Spirit God realm. Mu Ju's cultivation had reached the peak of the 6th level of the Spirit God realm. He was one level stronger than Lu Ming. Is this the strength of the Southern Divine Palace's genius? Lu Ming's eyes moved. The Godly Ruins continent was indeed the strongest continent in the Godly Ruins continent. The Southern Divine Palace could be considered as one of the 4 strongest forces in the Divine Ruins continent. The geniuses of the Southern Divine Palace were naturally extraordinary. In the Divine Wilderness continent, a genius like Long Chen was only at the peak of the 5th level of the Spirit God realm. The other geniuses like Xian Yinjuan and Underworld Child had just broken through to the 4th level of the Spirit God realm. The difference between them was too great. Kneel down. Mu Ju snorted coldly. He struck out with his palm, condensing a huge palm print that blasted toward Lu Ming. He wanted to suppress Lu Ming with one palm and make him kneel on the spot. So what if you're at the 6th level of the Spirit God realm? Lu Ming wasn't afraid at all. The dragon force in his body erupted as he threw out a punch. Boom! The terrifying fist energy bombarded the flaming hand and directly pierced through the flaming hand condensed by Mu Ju. Again. Mu Ju's eyes turned colder when he saw that his palm was destroyed by Lu Ming. Come on, it's my turn now. Lu Ming took a step forward. The ground trembled and countless inscriptions appeared. Swoosh! Lu Ming's figure instantly closed in on Lu Ming. At the same time, the third bloodline appeared above his head. A wisp of energy flowed into him, causing his body to emit a bloody light. Boom! Borrowing the power of the third bloodline, Lu Ming's strength surged again as he threw out a punch towards Mu Ju. A cold murderous intent shrouded Mu Ju as a terrifying force pressed down on him. This made Mu Ju's countenance change slightly. With a roar, flames flared and he threw a punch at Lu Ming. Boom! The two fists collided. Mu Ju's expression changed drastically as his body retreated a few steps. On the other hand, Lu Ming's body only swayed a little. What? Mu Ju was repelled. How is this possible? Mu Ju is at the peak of the 6th level of the spirit god realm. How could he be repelled? That Lu Ming is only at the 5th level of the spirit god realm. How could this happen? The scene was in an uproar when Mu Ju was repelled with a punch. Many people cried out in shock. Among them, there were a few young men whose eyes flickered with splendor. For example, the beautiful woman in the fiery red dress had a look of astonishment in her eyes. Damn it, kid, I'm going to kill you. Mu Ju roared furiously after being repelled by Lu Ming's punch. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.